Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, today on postburnout.com interviews, we have two interviews from two artists who are releasing new music today. In the first half, we talk with Shane McMullan from the Northern Irish experimental band Ferals. Shane discusses their new EP, Love and Other Obsessions, building a DIY punk scene in a seaside town, and how the Northern Irish music scene differs from others. In part 2, Ciarán Fitz from the Dublin psych-punk band Dumb Posh Hippies discusses their new single Scrunched Up Fist, his background with psych and punk music, the Irish D.I.Y punk scene and how he feels his project doesn't neatly fit into it, Bad Religion, Black Flag and Ramones, the limitations of being a three-piece, and much more.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, you. How are you?
Hello. Yes, I'm good, man. How are you? Nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you too, man. Is it just us speaking today, or?
Yeah, just me and you.
That's perfect. That's all you need.
I know I'll get to giggly with the other boys, I think.
Too rowdy, yeah. No, I've had that before where, I'm interviewing like a full band on Zoom and everyone's like joining at different times. So like I start up like lots of interviews and they're just like, is he in yet? Is he here? No. Oh, he's joining now. Oh wait, there's a problem with his connection and all this. So
Yeah, talking over the top of each other as well.
exactly. Doing the mano a mano thing, I think is always probably the best approach.
Oh, I know. And then I was so freaking out as well because I've like never done like the Zoom stuff either. And then I had it and I was all like set up like an hour early. And then it was like 10 to. I was like, yeah, join meeting just to sit there. And then it was like, download Zoom. And I was like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
have to download it. And I was like freaking out. Like I just didn't want to be late for it.
Oh no, it's grand. That's happened before, where it's like, yeah, people are like, yeah, no, just I've started interviews like 10 minutes late just because people were downloading Zoom and stuff. It's grand. It is what it is, man. Dude, it's really nice to talk with you. I want to pick your brain kind of about a little bit about kind of your background and stuff because obviously, I mean, Farrell's has been going for a while. You've been playing music for ages. I mean, I think prior to this, I mean, you're probably most known for the bayonets, I guess. But just
Yeah.
in general, what's your kind of like musical journey?
It's crazy to even hear about it. I forget that that was even like a thing because we were like just so young at the time as well.
Yeah.
Background wise, yeah, we've been like with me and Sam, I think we've been playing for so long now, but we are all from like the same town up in like the north coast.
Hmm.
And there were like these like local shows. There's a bar, there's like a little town just like 5 minutes from us called Ballymoney.
Hmm.
And there were these like there was one bar in particular called Ma Kelly's and it had like an attic and it was like the triangle roof and it was like, had the like wood, I don't know what you would call them, like supports and stuff. But they would put on shows and we would all still be in school. So you'd be like 15. But they used to
Just
like,
hanging out of the rafters.
yeah, that was honestly. And like that would, they would serve. I mean, it's not, it's closed now. So you can like talk about it, but
Okay.
it would, like they would like, serve the teenagers. So everybody from school would want to come to these gigs because they knew they were going to get
Served them
served.
Fanta, just
Yeah.
to be clear. Yeah, just Fanta.
Yeah, legit. And like, so, and I don't know if they cared about the music, but we thought we were like, rock stars, you know what I mean? Because there would be like 70, 80 people in this little attic and they would be like crammed into it. So that I think gives you
I
the
love
kind of buzz. You're like, oh my God, like we're so
that.
famous. But it was just because everybody was able to get like hammered. Then I think like the owners kind of caught on and then they would like kick people out. But then there was a back door. So he was actively kicking people out and then we were sneaking people in
Okay.
the back door. So he would be like, "Did I not just kick you out like 5 minutes ago?" So it was just this whole operation, but you were just like dumb kids and all, like playing covers and stuff like that. But it was nice because it was your first experience of like really hearing like loud music and things like that. And they used to do this thing once a month, like on the last Thursday, called the Mike Kelly's Extravaganza, and it would bring down like bigger bands, like bigger local bands. And I remember there was a band from here called like LaFaro, and then there was like a ska punk band called Pocket Billiards, and then I think and so I Watch It From Afar did one as well, and it was
Oh,
like,
okay.
when you're like 15, me and Sam always talked about it being like, and I think like Axis of had like an album out at the time, and
Yep.
we were like, they're from here, like they went to that school that our friends are, you know what I mean? And you kind of see these things, and you're like, you're just a kid, and you're like, it's impossible for me to ever have like an album out. Like I'll never be able to do that. And then you're seeing these guys in like the bars that you're playing in, being like, well, that's them, and like they're playing in the same venue. So you kind of have that in your brain, being like, oh well, I can do it. And I think that's like continued with me and Sam and Dan, this like DIY thing where it's
Hmm.
like, oh well, you can do it, because these guys were able to do it, and they kind of like paved the way for that mentality. So we were all playing in like different bands. I mean, Sam was in Bayonets for years before I was even in it. My first band was a band called Three Trick Horse, and it was like a three-piece, like punky sort of just crap, but it was fun and it was fast and all that. And then they were looking for a bass player, and I joined, and then we did all right. Like we had a bit of studio time and things like that, and we played a lot of shows. And then you're just older, we were like uni age, and there was like other things. I got really into like techno and like rave and all that, like stuff that you do whenever you're like 21, and
Totally.
you're like, oh whoa, like I love like single note, four on the floor, like groove stuff. And then I don't know, I think that they wanted a different sound, and I was like, oh well, it would be cool if it sounded like that. And then it just sort of dissolved in a way. But me and Sam still wanted to like work together. And then I had, and I think it sort of plays into the way that like Ferals does a lot of stuff, that I was going to go to uni for like music production, but I would have had to go to Lancashire and leave Bayonets. And then ironically, like Bayonets split like a year after that anyway. And I was like, oh my God, I've made the wrong choice. But I'd invested in like a computer and some like recording software, and just started like doing loads of demos and things like that, and trying to learn sort of just how to mix and like write, because we don't really like jam as a band, or we don't write because they live in Belfast and I'm still up north, so we
Hmm.
only get like a specific amount of time to practice. So I always find it helps to have like stuff prepared, to be like, oh, here's like an idea and we can like work on that. So I think me not going to uni and sort of investing in the computer, it allowed me to like write loads of demos when that band ended, and me and Sam knew we wanted to do this. So we had written all these songs, and it sort of allowed us, because in Bayonets you would record something, and then you would put it out immediately, and there would be no like thought of PR or trying to push it, or
Yeah.
like no planning or anything like that. It would just sort of like appear, and then you had nothing to back it up for like 6 months, and then you would have something else out. So I think that sort of played into the way like we would want Ferals to go. Like we had our first tune, and then we didn't announce anything for like 4 months because we wanted to get everything set up, and we were like, oh, we're actually like doing this properly now. But
Mhm.
it's just ended up being like, 10, 15 years of like just playing these wee local shows, and you get a little bit of studio time, and then you work on stuff like behind the scenes and like write loads of music. But it just takes so long to like get stuff out there. I mean, we have like loads and loads of tunes, but you just never seem to have enough time to like get them out, or like to afford to go to the studio and get them out like that. But it has just been like all of these little like rowdy DIY punk shows for
Yeah.
years and years and years that have always been like, oh, it'd be really great to like have that energy again. But I think that's sort of what's like stuck with us the most, and how all of those things has like developed into our like general mindset in how like Ferals is done, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a real kind of sense of anarchism to the band, I think, in just in terms of structure. I mean, it seems very anarchic in a great way. I mean, it's not necessarily, it's interesting, it's not like taking the the kind of, I guess, the punk rock idea of anarchy from a political stance, but more so actually applying it to your sonic structure, or I guess lack thereof.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's a lot of avenues based on what you said there that we could go down. And I guess the first thing I wanted to talk about that was quite interesting what you were saying is I'm very like interested in people who kind of put on local shows away from the kind of big cities, because I think especially kind of going around like a lot of down here like in like Wicklow the area. I'm in Dublin, but kind of around the Wicklow area.
Mhm.
There's like all these kind of like little seafronts and seaside towns that kind of have like put on local music, or even like comedy shows, or spoken word, and kind of have like music venues. I'm very interested in like people who are able to do that with kind of the resources of, I'm from a like a small town that has like a couple of pubs at most, and just try and find venues and sort of DIY venues, and even like I don't know, try and find, because like I think even like people used to put on stuff like in church halls and stuff, which is crazy.
Yeah.
The idea of playing a church halls gig, but like people did what they did. They got the kind of venues that they need. Do you find that if there is kind of artistic expression that needs to be made, people will find the means of getting the venues? You don't need necessarily the kind of club scene of kind of major cities.
100%. I mean, I think because they are such small towns and they're here, not that it's like forgotten about, but everybody's goal when we were here and we were growing up, it was like, we have to get to Belfast. Like, we have to play these shows in Belfast. We have to do that. And then you get there, and then immediately you're like, oh, I'd love to play Portrush again. I'd love to go back to that venue and like have that. And it's not that you're like forgotten about. It's just everybody thinks that the goal is like the bigger city. But then, which I mean, it is if you want to like grow and do all that. But there are still like people here, and every year there's people hitting uni age, or there's people hitting like, I've just left school and I'm really into this music, and I'm seeing all these bands that are in the bigger cities, but nobody's ever like coming here. So I think that's like when I talk about like the extravaganzas and stuff, when those big bands did come here, you really felt like, oh my God, like they know that we're still here and we're like fans of these bands. And like the gigs weren't always like cohesive lineup wise, you know what I mean? You'd have
Right.
this
Totally.
like guys playing like trumpets and all like the ska
Yeah.
stuff, and then there would just be these like really dirty riffs behind it, but you just
Yeah.
loved it because you never got a gig. And you're so right about like the church halls and things like that. There were like gigs in like Portstewart Town Hall where like, all of the real, they never turned like the lights down or anything like that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it never had like
Yeah.
proper stage lights, so it was
Right.
just like the surgical light on stage, and you're just there, and it's like, but it was just because you wanted to like play, and people wanted to hear music that wasn't, you know, like top 40 or like just
Right.
over a PA and stuff. So you're 100% right. And that sort of stuff, when a band comes, from the city and hits like these smaller like territories or like little towns and stuff, there are still people there that want to hear this, but you maybe think that there's not. So whenever you're like booking to play shows, you're like, oh, but there's only a wee tiny bar. It's like, play the bar
Yeah.
and, find a PA and just bring your amps and like plug in. And I think when you're talking about that, like ethos that Ferals has, like we still want to be able, as we want it to be polished and we want it to sound good, but we want to still be able to play if there's not the proper facilities there. Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
set up in a corner of a bar and it's raw and it's still the energy and it's still going to sound close to what it is recorded anyway. Because at the end of the day, like, I mean, I've looked into it and I think Dan's kind of pulled me back a little bit, which is quite nice because I'm like, oh, we should get click tracks. We should get backing tracks. And like, I can make it all at home. And he's like, yeah, I know, but then is there going to be anything left for us to play? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it doesn't matter. We could have like 5 guitars going in the background and then we'll play a little like bar show. And I'll be like, no, I love that. And I love that it's raw. And I love that it's just like 3 people able to like make it all sound like it is on the recording, like it's close enough to that. And it stays with you as like a fan in like a smaller town as well, and like I'll remember those ones and be like, wow, they actually came here. And it's even the same like in Northern Ireland. I'll always see like bands coming across from the UK, and they'll do like a run of shows in the UK, and then they'll maybe go to Dublin. And I mean, I get that it's like super expensive to come to Northern Ireland as well.
Mhm.
But I'm always like, oh my God, if they could just make that journey,
I know.
like stop forgetting about Northern Ireland. So we've like traveled down to Dublin to like see the one like Irish date on a tour and things like that. But when the band makes the effort to come to like a Belfast show or something, you remember that and you're like, I remember that band like chose to come here, or they like made the effort to do that. And they're always great shows because people appreciate it more almost, because
Yeah.
it's maybe a more forgotten about like stop on a tour. And I think
Hmm.
if you just take that and make it smaller, it's exactly this like you're hitting a smaller show in maybe like a something like that, but they're going to be so rowdy because people are so ready for it, or they're so starved of it almost.
Yeah.
Want much more.
Yeah, what I think is interesting, actually, based on what you were saying, is that like I think in the 2000s and even into the 2010s, it was quite common for artists if they came to Ireland to always do Belfast and Dublin. And what I found interesting is you could kind of see the similarities in venues between the two cities. So, for example, if a band played, say, the Olympia in Dublin, they played the Ulster Hall in Belfast. If they
Mm-hmm.
played the Mandela Hall in Belfast, they played the Academy down here, and so on. You could get kind
Yeah.
of a semblance of similarities in venues. And then I think you're right in like I think ever since like the late 2010s, perhaps until now, if acts come over to Ireland, they just play Dublin. But what I noticed actually is that smaller artists, when they come over here, are now playing around. Like I see a lot of tours which go Belfast, Ulster Sports Hall, Dublin Workman's, and like Limerick, like the Cashball, right? So I noticed that's very common for smaller acts now. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually tour around the country a little bit, where smaller acts probably would have only came to Dublin. It's very interesting. It feels like a flipped on its head. Like the more established acts are only coming over for like one show, and I think it's interesting because it seems to me that more acts are actually coming to Ireland, than before, but they're only playing Dublin.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. And I think as well, if an act comes over here, I mean, I always had it when I was like a bit younger. I was like, I'm gonna go mental at this show and like show them that it was like worth their while kind
Yeah,
of thing to come
yeah.
back. And then if they returned, I was like, well, I had a part to play, and then being like, well, we got to go back here because it was so good. But I think as well, like, I mean, I guess like certain venues and certain places like didn't survive all the pandemic stuff. But
Mhm.
I think as well, after that, there's a load of like venues in Belfast now that have like kind of upped their game or like invested and on the sort of smaller side, like the 200 cap rooms and the things like that. The facilities there are like really, really good now. So what you're talking about with the smaller acts, sort of realizing they can tour around, and there's not, because whereas before it probably would have been that sort of here room, and the jump up from that is like 700,000. It's like, how do you bridge? You're starting out, you know, people in a, 100 cap room still feels like really, really close. And then whenever it's sold out, you're like, and how do you triple amount of people to make the jump? There need, to me, there needed to be like a in the gap venue size to start to climb that ladder. So now it's kind of venues, and I think it's word has, oh, we can tour around a little bit more because I now have these like gap bridging sized venues with everybody, because then if a bigger band from the UK, they're maybe taking that risk and they don't want to do like 1,000 cap Ulster Hall or something like that because it's too much of a risk. Then that they can sort of be like, okay, well, we're massive in the UK, yeah, how big we are in Belfast. Let's like guys, and the facilities are now there, which I think like thing. And I mean, like people were so up for coming out after all the lockdowns, and that support. for like live music because you're so starved of it has seemed like can really drop off. It just sort of everybody was so pumped to get out, and then that energy has just which you know it just seems like it's moving in the right direction because it is. I mean, it's expensive to like tour, but people are taking risk on it, and I think hopefully it's like paying off for them. Well, I mean, bands are still touring, and like, bands are still wanting to get out there.
And also, I mean, like, touring and live dates and selling merch and stuff is really the only kind of source of income for most artists nowadays. So it's something that
Oh yeah,
like you have to do. I mean, it's like I mean, like to me that was always kind of the appeal of playing in bands was actually touring and doing live shows more so than being in the
yeah,
studio and rehearsing. One thing I think is interesting, also based on something you were saying earlier, is I think like I don't know what's like up north, but I find like down here, like a lot of gigs I go to, um, that kind of breed of like teenage bands who, are kind of shaky at the beginning, kind of shitty, kind of a little out of sync, and but are practicing as they go and learning as they go. I find that that's kind of disappeared now, where, when I was kind of like, 15, 16, you'd go to see like local bands and it would just be kind of crappy musicians starting out who were playing like a set list of covers and maybe like one or two originals. But now it's like completely reverse where everyone's very professional, everyone's very in sync, everyone is doing originals and maybe one cover, and even then it's like a total reinvention of the original song. I don't know if you find that too. I mean, do you think the kind of that sort of breed of teenage bands is sort of dying, or the unprofessional teenage bands kind of getting their wings as they go?
100%. Like as soon as you said it, it made me laugh because like we used to be so bad. Like
Yeah.
everybody was so bad, and
Yeah.
you would make like these little music videos on like your phone, and like like the potato recordings, and it's all pixely and shit.
Put on
And we
Bebo.
Yeah, and we would like play the shows, and then we would go home, and then we would like laugh. We would just laugh at each other, you know what I mean? Because everybody was in their like respective bands, and we would come back and we would be like, they suck, you suck, like we're all really bad. But that's how you kind of got better. But now
Yeah.
you're so right that everybody's so polished, and it's freaking me out as well because like, you know, we'll like first support or we'll headline something, and you'll watch the opening bands, and I'll be like not nervous until I watch them, and then I'm like, oh my god, like everybody's so good these days, and like people are coming out and they've got these like immaculate like pedal boards, and they're coming in with like the branded guitars and stuff, and I'm still using like a knockoff bass, and Sam's got his like knock, and I'm like,
I think you're gonna
like
say line six.
yeah, like and they sound so, and everything's so lush, and everybody's so tight, and I'm like, everybody got really really good, and I think, I mean, I've thought about it as well, like the way we're like living now. I guess you maybe not so much for like local shows, but you always see like a phone out and it's going on a story, or it's like going on Instagram, or somebody's like TikToking something. You know, I would have hated that when we were coming up, when we were really, really terrible,
Yeah.
because you're like, that's there forever and like everybody's seeing it.
Mhm.
So I think maybe everybody's like aware that at any point in the set somebody could whip a phone out, and like your mistake can be there, so it's like we better be like really really good kind of thing,
Mhm.
which I don't know, I mean that's just me and the way I think about it. But also there was something else. It was like, because that pressure's there, I've completely forgotten my other point, but I just think that like that idea that at any point you could be like snapped
Yeah.
like at your worst moment has kind of like made everybody be like, oh yeah, it's like when I used to watch a band and they looked actively nervous,
Mm.
that would make me nervous. So like you're almost like waiting for them to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Whereas if the guy is like like if I'm like super confident and like make like a massive balls up, but I kind of laugh it off. It like lets everybody else be like, yeah, like it
Yeah.
happens. Like, we're all mortal after all, that kind of thing. Whereas like if I'm standing up there like a barrel of nerves and stuff, you're waiting for me to mess up. And then
Yeah.
everybody's on edge and they're like, oh my God, he's gonna do it again. He's gonna have like a meltdown kind of thing. And I just think that everybody's got so cool. Like everybody's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like that's sweet. Like we're a great band now. And it's so good to see because it's just lifting everybody's standards. Like I was saying before, like I'm like, oh my God, they're really, really good. Like the support's really good. Everybody sounds great. That makes me be like, well, we have to be like really on it. And it just like focuses you up a little bit more. And it makes like, not that you weren't taking those like young gigs seriously, but they were raw and it was just your
Yeah.
friends and all that. But now it's
And there,
like,
there was a sense of perspective to it where, again, you're
yeah,
playing to like a bar with like 20 people there
yeah,
and you're just playing like covers of like old songs. And it's like, I
hmm,
think there was a sense of perspective where it's like, we're not the next, we're not the next Rolling Stones or whatever.
yeah, yeah. And it's like you're saying, like there's less covers in the sets. People are actually coming out to see your own original tunes now. So it's like
Yeah.
we deserve to give them like the best. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
everybody seems
And
to be
also
taking it.
home recording's gotten so good. I mean,
Yeah.
releasing's gotten so good. Because like I remember, still buying, well, not buying, but like getting people's like demos on a disc, on CDs and stuff like that, and people handing out like these shitty photocopied like thing,
Yep.
and it's just like here's my demo if you want to
Yep.
listen to it, and
I
that kind of
remember.
being the aspiration of burning CDs.
Yeah, there was like an old YouTube video and it was like how to make a CD sleeve from an A4 page. And you would
Yeah,
buy like the big file pages and like fold these. And it was
yeah,
like bought CDs, like the CDRs. And we just used to write like little
yeah.
slogans on them and stuff. And we were like, oh, thanks. And all. So they were all personal, but they were, and you like flipped it over and it was that like weird blue sheen on it and stuff. Like
Yes,
they were
yes.
absolutely like ripped off the computer kind of thing. And now like you can go and you can buy like we've bought like CDs now and they're like glossy and they've got like the thing on them and I'm holding it and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that's actually ours and like we did it all. And whereas it's still the same idea, but the quality of everything just looks so much better. And
Totally.
it's like a good time for it because now your like reach is so much further as well because of the internet and you can find all these businesses that will like print you the things and like your t-shirts look better and everything just the quality looks so much better and it just means that everybody's quality is better off the back of it as well.
Totally. And actually, I remember here's something that I think if there's any younger people listening, they probably won't get this. And I'm not saying this in a, oh, you young kids today kind of thing. It's like, no, it's just times are different. I don't like bemoan people from the era, or it's just like whatever, times are different than people. But I remember like back in the day, you could kind of tell the level of professionalism in a very short thing. So when people were exporting their songs back in the day, you could put in the metadata for like iTunes, you could put in the metadata, the lyrics and an album cover and the song titles, where you could tell like the artist who went to that effort, and you could tell the artist like once you put the song in your CD drive and it came up on iTunes, like you could tell like this one's just track one, track two,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you could tell like the ones that actually like took the time out to write their lyrics to put like an actual album cover. So when you were putting on your iPod, everything was there automatically. You didn't have to do it yourself.
Yep. I
And that was the
always,
sign of professionalism back then.
yeah, it like goes in your car and it has like the actual name scrolling
Yes,
by.
yes.
I always thought when I was younger, a great band name would be Untitled Artists. And then
Oh yeah.
all of your tracks would just be track one, track two, track three. And because of that, but that would be, you're totally right. Like that would be lost today because everything is like you're doing that stuff 2 months out. You know what I mean? But
Totally.
like, I always just thought that would have been a great name, but it would be redundant now. Like,
Yeah, I don't know how like, if you can do things like I know like even something like hidden tracks. Like I know Bandcamp allows you to do a hidden track, but like it's kind of
mm-hmm.
if you're doing it everywhere, it's like it's kind of a difficult thing to do. Because I literally remember being hit by songs like just because I left the CD running
Yeah, like
and
20
and and
minutes
forgot
after.
about it. Yeah, exactly, and shit like that. And literally, it's so impressive. Like when that happens, or even when you're like going to sleep and you'd have like your earpods in and shit like that,
Yeah, and
and
then you
like
get
the
woken
song be
up by
over.
it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And like, I wonder if you can still do things like that, if people could just track the time, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
And again, it's just like, again, I'm not being fucking old man about it. I'm just like
yeah.
saying, it's just cool things, that times
It
have
just
changed and that's fine,
it just sort of it just sort of had this like this innocence to it or something, you know what I mean? Because
Totally.
everybody was trying to work it out together.
Yeah.
Whereas like now, like some people, like there's just YouTube tutorials on everything, and like you can just be the best immediately because you can just find, here's how you put your songs on this, and you can use this distributor. Like we had no idea back in the day. It was like, how do you even like get your songs online? Like, do
Yeah.
you send the CD to somebody and he puts it on the internet? Like you just had no idea what to do. So but everybody was like making those mistakes themselves. So like it was just like a laugh. There was just like that naivety or innocence to it. But now everybody seems to know how to do things. And I think that's playing into why everybody seems so professional because like they are professional, you know, it's an actual like people are really, really treating it seriously and like but we can like be nostalgic about like how
Yeah.
I don't know, just like entertaining it was to like fumble around in the dark to try and work it all out yourself.
Yeah, and to be clear, I do think it is better now for artists. It's just
Mm.
it's just kind of a fun thing to look back on. But actually, one thing I was interested in, just kind of as you were kind of describing there, like to me, I mean, it feels like a kind of maturity and an expansion of the kind of DIY networks you were discussing. Like the idea of like, going to a local pub or whatever and asking could you put on shows. To me, this seems like an evolution of that, where it's like, now we're telling people how to use DistroKid, and now we're telling people how to get their stuff on Spotify, and like, rather than having to hear about it from local musicians in your town, you can go to YouTube and some guy will explain it to you. Do you think that it's an expansion of the DIY thing? And it seems like every artist now, to some degree, is a DIY artist. I mean, even artists who are getting signed to labels, most of them still have a lot more control over their music than they used to. And every artist is kind of doing self-promotion. Every artist is kind of responsible for their own career and their own trajectory in a way that they probably weren't at one point.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's always unless you get like the dream record deal kind of thing, it's always going to be DIY, do you know?
Hmm.
And I think we used to ask those questions because that was like the next step, you know, like how are you getting a CD or what CDs are you using or like who'd you go to do your artwork and stuff? Because
Hmm.
that was like the next attainable thing. Whereas now the next attainable thing is like, how's it getting on Spotify? You know, it's like your goalposts have almost changed. But I just think of the people that like gave me those little like tidbits of information. And I'm like, if anybody asked me, I would want to be able to do the same thing, like, you know, vice versa kind of thing.
Sure,
Because
paying it forward.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it like the like rising tide, it's like all ships kind of thing. And like,
Totally.
because it just seems mean. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Like it
yeah. You
just
don't,
seems
dude. You don't want to like pull the ladder up from behind you once other people are
yeah.
struggling. You know.
Because like I mean, I'm still learning as well. Like, I still have no idea. Like, I speak to like Michael, and he's been like putting out stuff for years, and like, you know, is doing like shows for years and things like that. And he's got it down to like such a fine art. And I'm still, again, like, you just always feel like you're fumbling around, and I'll be like, "How'd you do that?" And he's like, "I'll send you like
Yeah.
a paragraph of stuff on how to do." And I'm like, he could have easily just been like, "Learn, just do
Don't
it,
worry
man."
about
Like, yeah, exactly. And
it.
it's like things like that like stick with you because people are actually like going out of their way and taking their time to help out in that kind of way.
Mhm.
And it's so DIY because it then ends up like bringing your like scene closer together because oh, that guy helped me, so like I'm gonna go see their show. And you know, it just like you're all going to war together basically. You know, it's such a difficult industry to get into, and like there's no funding for it, and like venues are closing all the time, and people are taking merch cuts and things like that. Like it's not
Yeah.
a particular, you have to really really love it to want to try and get into it. So like you have to kind of make it as easy as possible for everybody because maybe someday you're going to need their help, and they're going to think, well, he didn't tell me how to get on Spotify. So like,
Fuck him.
yeah, legitimately, yeah. But I think that is, and I mean, like with YouTube coming in and all the tutorials and stuff like that, like I'd have no idea how to mix because of that DIY thing that you were talking about, like the self-recording and the self-publishing and all that kind of stuff. There are so many tutorials. I wouldn't have any idea how to do any of that stuff if it wasn't for like YouTube nudging me in the right direction and then just doing it as well. Like,
Mhm.
invest in the computer, taking the risk, and then like writing loads of demos. Like, I really hate deleting stuff no matter how old it is, because I'm always like, if we ever finish this song and it gets like modernized and like everything sounds really nice, I still want to hear how terrible like the first recording is, like with the
Right.
terrible MIDI drums and like the horrible things like that. Like, because the technology is so good, but there is something about like just trial and error. Like, oh, well, I didn't know what this plugin was. So, but I just messed around with it until it sounded really good, or like a pedal. I remember Sam would get like a load of pedals and he would just sit for like hours and like figure out every single setting and stuff like that. But now, before you even buy the pedal, you can like see someone on YouTube like using every setting, and you can be
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, I do want that, or that's exactly what I need that for. You can really like streamline your whole process just by like half an hour of like tutorials online,
Yeah.
which
I know even that's getting kind of circumvented too because people are just like going digital. They're not
yeah,
even using
as
pedals.
well. I know, and again, thank you to Dan for like pulling me back from that, because me and Sam have talked. I mean, we'll never be able to afford it, but
Yeah.
me and Sam have been talking about like Axe effects and stuff like that, and we're like, imagine just being able to do that, like not even having to do like the little pedal board dance anymore, and like
Yeah.
because like our sound like launches from like quiet to heavy. He's like turning on three different pedals at a
Yeah.
time and on. He'd be like, that'd be great if I could just like stand there. I'm like, yeah, wouldn't it? And Dan's like, come on now,
Wishful thinking.
like real in the bank account, like.
No, but dude, like sometimes I think there actually is kind of a beauty to the limitations because when you have kind of every resource at your hand, it can get quite overwhelming. Where if it's like, well, here are the tools I have, and it's finite and it's limited, and I can only do so much with it. I can twerk with it, I can, alter it, of course, but these are the tools at my disposal. It kind of
Massively.
like it makes the I think the songwriting process a little more streamlined, at least in my opinion. I mean, I think, but you can get you can almost get driven to madness just like having too much at your fingertips.
Oh, definitely. It's scary as well. I mean, there's a story. We had a song out called Simple Lives, and I needed a delay. I think I was playing guitar in Ferals at the time, so it was like really, really early days, and I hated it. It was just there was too many strings and all, and like I had bought a delay pedal, and it was one of those like cheap, like £40 ones, and it's tiny, and I was like sick, like didn't need to be too complicated, and I got it home, and it ended up like adding distortion every time it repeated, and I was like, this is
Mhm.
crap. Like, I can't believe I've like wasted my money on this kind of thing. And then I did the thing, fiddled around with it and all this, and it was like it's unsalvageable. Like, it was never used, but it ended up being the intro to that song where it goes like because it like oscillated, and every time it got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And we just brought that to the studio and we used it like one time, but it ended up being that intro. And I was like, wow, if I had seen a tutorial for that online, I would have been like, I'm never buying that. Like, I'll
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
use it. But it forced me to like utilize the pedal, because I was like, well, I've paid money for this. I'm like, I'm gonna get at least one use out of it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we don't we don't do that sound live, but it's just such a nice little like effect to like throw in, and loads of stuff like that, and like things from demos that make it on to like actual finished tracks and because you'll not be able to like replicate the sound, because maybe it was like a crap MIDI tone or something that you've like messed with so much that to recreate it on like a nice, you know, recording software, it would sound too polished or something like that. But there's character, there's like characteristics in sort of like stock plugins that you might not, or like stuff that you've really worked at for hours to make
Yeah.
sound like listenable.
It also get kind of worrying if everyone's using the same effects that things might get a little too uniform.
100% as well. Yeah, like you have
Mm.
to have not a signature sound, but you have to have like a
Distinctive.
personality. Yeah, a distinctive sound. Yeah, massively. And like I think that's something that's really nice about how we do it. That there are these, like I'll send the guys an idea, like a skeleton structure or things like that, but it'll have like little like MIDI things in it and stuff like that that they can like bounce off, and it becomes like your like identity almost. It's like, oh, there's that like sound that they always use, or there's that thing that, it sounds like them. And it's because it's like within, you know, my software, like Sam loves like GarageBand, and Dan makes beats and he uses like FL, and I love Cubase, and like it's not going to be like the same synth sounds across everything. So you end up having like this sort of personality almost coming through, and loads of people are doing that. And I think that's why like there's so many like variations of the same like genres now, because people are like doing it themselves and like doing them at home, but they're all like, they might be mixing the same way, or everything's like being balanced the same way, but their choice of synth tone or plug-in or something like that might just vary, or their like how they utilize it might just be like slightly different. Whereas if everybody goes to the same producer or the same mix engineer, like you're saying, like it might start to sound a bit more like uniform
Hmm.
production wise, at least, or like in there, oh, I know this synth sounds great, so we're going to throw it on there. And it's like, that sounds like that band synth. I always like to kind of go for stuff that is like a nod to a synth tone that I like, but I'll never pay £200 for like a synthesizer kind of, you know what I
No.
mean? Which is
Yeah.
nice, because it's like you have to work within your limitations almost, which then gives you that identity.
Yeah. It pays to be a cheap bastard. No, I'm joking.
It truly does, honestly. Like,
Well, one thing, and I've probably been a bit of a dramatist here, but I was thinking about what you were kind of saying there. I was thinking like, if let's say for example you were in person going to teach someone how to use FL Studio, let's say, um, you could kind of work with them and work with their kind of understanding of it, limitations, kind of adapt your teaching skill to kind of what they need to learn as a newcomer. Where if someone's uploading a video to say YouTube and that video gets say 2 million views, here's how to use FL Studio, potentially you get 2 million people thinking that's gospel and that's the only
yeah,
way to kind of do things, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
It's
So
like,
maybe that can create a uniformity too, just because if everyone's learning from the same source, everyone
yeah,
kind of does the same
it's like,
thing.
take an extra 5 minutes and watch another video on the
Right.
same thing, and it's like, see where like the Venn diagram overlaps, and it's like, well, he's saying to do this and he's also saying to do this, so that might be like the right way to do it.
Mhm.
But then just go left field, like experiment a little bit and like do that kind of like, I don't know, there's such a rush to like get to the finish line of it now, where it's like some of like, because it gets pretty bleak here in winter. It's like just dark all the time, and a
Mhm.
lot of our stuff is like written then, because you just like hunkered up. Like, I mean, I'm in my attic now,
Yeah.
and that's where like all the studio stuff is, and you're just sitting there for like hours of the day being like, that sounds weird now, yeah, use that. And because there's just nothing to do,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
can't go out, you get like 4 hours of daylight.
Maybe that's why Scandinavia have such bleak music.
Yeah, as well, just
They get it
all the
way
black
worse
metal
than we
coming
do.
out. I know, man,
The
but it does make a difference, because it's like, yeah, summer you play your shows, and then like winter you just like lock yourself in a way and stuff, and like, but I like that as well, because a lot of the times I think, I mean, not that it's like particularly like sad music that we make, but there is like a kind of, not like darkness, but like a cold
right.
like
I
sheen
get what you're
over it
saying.
almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not like warm, and it's not sort of like cozy kind of music. It has, to me at least, it has this like, yeah, just this like coldness. And they talk about it before, like, not just about us. hopefully they include us in it, but like this North Coast sound, and why is all these bands like coming out with these big like jaggedy sort of stuff, and there's like a vein that runs through all these bands, and like me and Sam always talk about it. It's like it's gotta be like the ocean, you know what I mean? Like you're so used to hearing that like sound of just like
I think that happens with
nature.
coastal people too, because I think you could also see replicas of that sound in places like Galway, Cork, Limerick that are also coastal as well. Um, I guess technically Dublin is coastal, but the actual city scene is kind of inward. It's inland,
Yeah,
so I guess not. But I do get what you're saying. Like especially kind of in and I don't think it's also just in Ireland. I mean, I think if you look at like kind of seaside towns in like the UK as well, and maybe all over Europe, like you kind of get that sense too. There's something about I think the proximity to the ocean that evokes melancholia.
yeah,
I don't know
100%. And
why.
people are just like staring out into the void. Like, they're just like, yeah, looks quite nice out there.
Reminds me of that Husker Du song, Standing by the Sea, which has that kind of haunting, kind of looping bass line. It almost feels like a lighthouse, like kind of
Oh, nice.
swirling around. And they incorporate sounds of the sounds hitting the rocks into the song. It's very similar. It's a song about PTSD, but it's a very beautiful song.
That
It's
sounds
good.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds right up my alley as well. Like I love things like that. Like just stuff that reminds me of the coast, you know, like every time, because Sam and Dan have been living there, like in Belfast so long, and Sam's like, oh, I really need to get back to the ocean. And I'm like, yeah, like, come on. He's like always inspired by it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know what it
Right.
is. It's just like, I don't know. And we're just cold all the time. Like, you'd like go to the bar in the middle of November and you'd walk out and you're just like 20 mile an hour wind, just like ice cold, and you just like a more hardened people. You know what I mean? You're just like,
Totally.
yeah, hands in the pockets, kind of like a bit more like introverted or insular almost. Like, you just,
I don't think I ever appreciate how cold it gets, like the further north you get until like last year I was in Liverpool
mm-hmm.
just before Christmas and I could not stand being outside because I always think Dublin's really cold
Yeah,
and but then I kind of once you go further north it is just like so freezing it's almost unbearable
it's the
to
wind that
me
gets you,
to
man.
my
It's
sensibilities.
it's
Absolutely.
absolutely the wind, and especially if you're in like a wee old man pub and they've got like a nice fire going as
Yeah.
well, and you don't even realize, and then it's like doubly cold whenever you get out
You
and
have
you're
to
just
walk home.
yeah, yeah.
It's a good place to open a jacket shop
Yeah.
if you're looking to invest in rural parts of the north or like seaside towns.
Big
Um, I
parkism.
want I want to talk about just before we talk about ferals, just a little bit about your background. So I was just wondering, kind of, what got you into bass? Because I also play bass, and at
Mhm.
the time. I started by playing guitar. I learned guitar, and then I realized everyone plays guitar. So I was like, well, it'd be more of a unique thing if I learn bass. I can just transport the skills. And I started off just doing root notes basically of the kind of
Mhm.
power chords I'd be doing on guitar. Because I started like you did, kind of doing like punk, just kind of like shitty punk songs.
Yeah.
And once I started, so I was just playing root notes on the bass, and it was just like crap. And then eventually I actually fell in love with it and just play bass proper. But for you, what's your kind of background and why did you choose that instrument?
It's you're totally right as well. It's the most fun instrument.
Yeah.
Like it's so much less pressure, but it takes so much less effort to make people be like, "Whoa, that was cool." You know, like you could sit
Yes.
for 5 minutes and play the same note and then go like, "Did it?" And they'll be like, "Whoa!" Whereas like the guitarist is like shredding and everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever." For me, exactly the same. Like started on guitar, had lessons and all that, and like really loved it. And but I was always in like growing up, like it was like Blink 182. So I loved Mark Hoppus so much. There's an actual like pink bass sitting right beside me as well. It's like
Okay.
my 15th birthday present, and I loved it because he played it like a guitar, and like bass chords and things like that, and he was always like high up on the neck and like just really really fast. So then I kind of feel like I developed that, like coming from guitar, play the bass like a guitar, and it just holds this like weight. And then even whenever you're like thinking about like when I was at that uni age and I'm all into and everybody's into like like rave music and like techno and things like that, everybody's only interested in like the low end and the sub. And it's like, you can hear really like stinking guitar tone and everybody's like nice. But then if you just hear that sub, everybody's always looking for like a really like heavy drop. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, if you could do that as a band, like you like even look at like these gent bands coming in and like metal bands, like everybody's tuning lower and lower and lower. Everybody's trying to hit that like sub frequency. So I don't know, I just loved it as an instrument. And I loved like the fact that I think my bass playing helped my guitar playing. It made me like understand guitar more because it made me understand where the guitar needed to go as long as it was still, or where the guitar could go while it was, if it was being supported by the bass.
Hmm.
So all that like Blink stuff, like he's always like high up on the guitar playing like these melodies, but it always feels right because it's like completely supported by the bass. And then I was really into this band Billy Talent, and
Hmm.
they're all like, I mean, obviously Billy Talent, they're a 4 piece, but instrumentally they're like a 3 piece. Blink are a 3 piece, and all these like power trios and like instrumentals that are just like one guitar, one bass, but can have these big sounds. The guitar is almost like free to do whatever it wants as long as there's this massive supporting backbone to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where like a lot of my sound, or the sound that I want to get, comes from, is like I want Sam to be able to do whatever he wants up here or wherever on the guitar and have it not sound weak. And you know, a lot of like the pedals that I use are guitar pedals that he just gave me. But then I have like a few things, like there's a little EQ that runs that like boosts a lot of the low end, because like the overdrive that I use is like a guitar overdrive and it like sucks a lot of the low end. So then I sort of use that to balance that. I mean, I could just invest in like a bass distortion that wouldn't do that,
You're
but
right.
I don't know, like it's that thing of like working in your limitations again. And it becomes like that's what Feral's bass tone sounds like, and it doesn't just sound like,
Everything else.
yeah, like a dark glass or like a
Yeah.
muff or whatever, that kind of stuff. But then I finally like invested in the Octavator as well, because I was like, well, that'll bridge the gap between me and Sam and things. So like just finding ways of like making that like low end not feel weak, to give the
Mhm.
opportunity for the guitar to be able to like do something cool or do something really washy. A lot of our stuff we talk about like rhythmic hooks, where like you have to, if you're only in a 3 piece, like you have to utilize like everybody as a kind of like you know driver of the song. So I love like using like the drums to be able to be like, oh, you can like recognize what that song is just by its rhythm without any melody, and then the melody comes afterwards. There was a band called Everything Everything, and me and Sam were really really, we loved Foals and all that, like they're like one of our favorite bands. But we seen Everything Everything support them in the Three Arena actually, and we'd never heard of them before. And we were noticing that like the guitarist is like doing whatever, like just these weird kind of like loopy things, but the actual melody of the song was on the bass. And me and Sam were really into that, and we were like, yeah, what if we just did that, or like tried to find a way to do that, like your actual hooky sing-along thing is the bass, and then it frees Sam up to do whatever he wants. So it's just like experimenting with like the norm, or like whatever the form is of like, yep, guitar plays this and the bass plays this and the drums do that. It's like, well, what if we all just did the thing that the other person was supposed to do and see
Mhm.
what that sounded like? I just love that idea. Like as long as it sounds good as well, do you know what I mean? As long as it doesn't sound
Well,
weak.
yeah.
I think
That's
that
the
is like,
important thing. It should
that's the
sound
main
good.
thing. Like if it doesn't, if we're like,
That's
well,
it.
we want,
Well, I'm kind of being a bit flippant there, but I do think that is important because I think sometimes people do prioritize or can prioritize experimentation and differentiation over making an actual good song.
yeah, like just, well, I mean, we all like played in different tunings and it was mad and it sounded like crap, but it was different. Like it was different. Like
Well, you got to do that. I think you have to like I think when you experiment, you have to be open to crap and open
yeah.
to shit not being good. I think like Sonic Youth is an example of just like they would just mess around with tunings all day, and then
Hmm.
eventually they'd get something good. But it's like I bet like 80% of the stuff they were making on a day to day would sound like
Yeah,
shit.
never see the light ever. Like
Yeah, exactly. One thing I think is very interesting about the kind of bass playing you were discussing there with the Mark Hoppus playing on playing high was that like I was thinking about like other bassists who kind of do that, and it's interesting the kind of variety of sound you can get because you can get people like Mark Hoppus or like Fat Mike from NoFX who kind of make sort of kind of pop punk kind of happy, somewhat upbeat. Although Mark Hoppus and Fat Mike can make sometimes more haunting or more kind of challenging instrumentations with that playing style. But then you have someone like Peter Hook from Joy Division who, makes something who plays in a similar style, makes something very intimidating, makes something very minimalistic even. And then you have someone like Klaus Fluoride from the Dead Kennedys who can, I think are a good example of that kind of thing you were talking about, where as long as you had the kind of solid rhythm section who were kind of keeping the rhythm of the song, the guitarist is kind of free to do what they want. It's interesting the range you can kind of get from just a portion of your neck and the kind of sounds you can just make just by kind of excluding the kind of I guess typical four frets or whatever.
yeah. And also another thing as well, like I remember it would have been years ago now, and like I remember seeing like an interview and it was one of the guys in Slipknot talking about, I think he was talking about Paul Gray maybe, and he was like
Mhm.
he influenced my guitar playing because he was like he would tell me don't don't like use your other strings, just use your single string and go higher and higher up because it's a
Yeah,
thicker string, so it's going to sound heavier. And then that always like stuck with me, I think. And I remember because I'm singing as well, I like to keep my hand like as close as possible in like the same position. So I'll
yeah,
very rarely like, well, I try as much as possible to not use the other three strings and just play everything on
yeah,
maybe on the top two, but
yeah,
sort of because it again it like sounds heavier. Like I
yeah,
could go up to like a specific point, you can get high on the bass, but like I just love staying on this one string. And if it means I got to move a little bit more, but it sounds heavier,
yeah.
like I love that, that kind of thing. Or if it means I need to move less and it has that chunkier thing, like that comment always like stuck with me. And I was like, whoa. I mean, nothing like I'm not going to like 24th fret or something, but like, just within the 12, like
Yeah, you can't if you're playing up that high, you can't really wear your bass low.
yeah,
You'll break
yeah.
your back. Well, no, I was thinking like someone like Cliff Burton's a good example of just like kind of the heaviness you can get just from like using the D and G strings alone.
Hmm.
It's insane like the sounds he got from that. I don't know if you're actually are you familiar with the bass player Mark Sandman from the band Morphine?
Not at all, man.
He
No.
played, dude, you gotta check him out. He's like insane, like for kind of what you're doing. I'll just put his name in the chat there,
Yeah,
just so you can
please,
look
yeah.
him up. But he played just like a two string bass
Hmm.
with a slide, and it just and he messed with the tuning, and it was like such a unique, insane sound because it was him playing a two string bass, a saxophonist, and a drummer, and that was like the band, and it's just like some of the
That's
most amazing music I've ever heard in my life. I love that man
unreal.
so much.
Yeah, but again, it's that thing, and it's if you think about it, it's like the power trio because like if it's a sax, like he's just lead guitar, like whatever way you
Yeah,
want to think about it, there always has to be this like bass. There always
yeah,
has to be that like big support and backbone. And I mean, like the amount of two pieces coming through now as well, and like
yeah.
everybody got so hooked on like Royal Blood as well, and it's like it's just
Soft play and things like
yeah,
the
yeah,
drivers.
and
Yeah, yeah,
it's like all of this is just like bass riffs, but
yeah.
but using it sometimes it sounds like a lead guitar, but it's always got this like big sub to it and stuff like that. And I think it's like it just sort of shows like
Or even if
loud,
you look at someone
recording.
like Jack White, how much he kind of emulates bass with his guitar
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah,
I think that's
like
significant too.
even the two pieces that are like just guitars, they're always looking to like
Have
duplicate the
that low
guitar
end.
on a lower time, yeah, as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And it's like get a bass and like
I'm free.
yeah, like
Well, there was something cool that I saw like on YouTube. Someone uploaded them adding a bass part to the song "Fell in Love with a Girl" by White Stripes. It just
mhm.
sounds so good, and people are like, "Yeah, this is." It's funny because that's a great song. I like that song a lot, and it sounds so complete. But then when you add that, you're like, "Shit, it could have just been that much
Yeah,
more."
shoulda, woulda, coulda, like yeah.
Dale, trying to take up too much of your time. You've been very gracious.
No, you're
With
grand, man. I
Ferals,
don't mind.
oh, perfect. With Ferals, I mean, you guys have been releasing music since 2018. So my understanding is Stan, who's your drummer, he also DJs. Yourself, and Sam. Sorry, you come from the Bayonets, if I'm getting all that correct.
Mhm.
So how did this band kind of form then after that band split?
Well, me and Sam, we still wanted to like make music together. I think we had like really similar um like musical interests, and we were always like, yeah, that sounds good together. And just the way we worked, I think always kind of like gelled. And we kind of we were just sort of we knew we were going to be in a band, and I was like demoing the stuff out, and then we kind of like tried a couple of drummers, but Dan used to play in a band up here. I don't think I ever seen them live. They were called Stress on the Ruin. Mm, but maybe I can't remember ever seeing them. But Sam knew him, and he like came to practice one day, and we already had like a set of songs, and he just jammed along. Like we, it was one of those nice ones where you don't like tell them what to do. I tell him what to do now, but like I didn't tell him what to do that day, and we were like, well, he gets it. He like kind of
Yeah.
gets the sort of thing we're going for. And then as more and more kind of time passed, we were like, yeah, you're into this band, we're into this. And it just all seemed like we were kind of doing this or wanting to do the same thing, but more so like the stuff that we like is almost not the stuff that we make. Like Dan really loves like hip hop and like will make beats, and Sam loves like indie and like acoustic and stuff like that. And then we all love like metal, and we unashamedly love like new metal and things like that.
Hmm.
Like, like just big groove, like riffs. But then we love that like summery indie kind of stuff. And then Dan's such a groove player because all the hip hop stuff. Like, it's just this real weird. It's almost like what you were saying earlier. It's like you've got like everything's like an option.
Hmm.
Because if you like everything, you can draw influences from everything. But then that's intimidating as well because it's like, well, we could make this like mad fusion thing, but like, is it
Yeah.
is it gonna sound good as well? So it's like we
Well,
just
not trying to be
really
funny, but is being limited as a musician in terms of, say, you weren't particularly gifted as a musician, say all you could really do is power chords. I'm not accusing you of this, but do you think there's a kind of a beauty in that simplicity in the sense that it kind of limits your range a little bit?
I think, well, I mean, you look at the popularity of like all the like pop punk bands that came through and all that, like people loved, and I loved it. Like that was my thing. And it's actually like how I started playing as well, because like it's just it not that it's like a limitation, but it's just really right there. Like
Yeah,
here you go, here's your melody, and it just always resolves perfectly. It's just so satisfying.
yeah.
And like I think, yeah, just limiting yourself can be like such a healthy way to like write as well, because it's so intimidating just having like a blank project and being like,
Yeah.
wow, this could really go anywhere. Like, and then you almost can't start. So
No
like,
one knows how difficult it is to be talented.
I
Well, no, that
definitely
is kind
don't.
of an issue too, though, because if you can play metal and you can croon, it's like it's a difficult thing, you know what I mean? If you
Yeah,
have that wide range, it's
I
like
know.
shit, I'm taking inspiration for everything.
I remember seeing there was an Enter Shikari like making of kind of thing, and they were
Yeah.
going in to do, I think it was like flash photo color maybe, and they were in a
They
studio.
were quite radical for the time, by the way, Enter
They were
Shikari. I remember because
mad,
like at the time
mad, man.
people, but back then, man, it's a thing that thankfully we've kind of move past, but back then there was like people who were into kind of like electro music and people who were into metal just did not get along.
Yeah, yeah. And
It's
then
so
they were
stupid to
the
think of now, but like,
they're
they
like the
kind of do that.
torchbearers,
Yeah,
like
pretty
bringing
much.
everyone together. Like
Everyone
they had,
everyone was so I don't know, so dogmatic at that time.
yeah, it had to be this or that. Like
Yeah, exactly.
they had
But
this.
very binary.
I remember they had it before they went into the studio. They had this like one of those like graphs, and it was like heavy, melodic, and like
Yeah.
electronic guitars, and then they would X on the graph where they wanted this particular song. So it was like it needs to be heavy, but it needs to be electronic, or it needs to
Okay.
be melodic, but it needs to have like guitars. And I was just like,
It's
what
kind of
an
like a sound matrix.
yeah. And I'm like, what an interesting way to kind of decide like how you're going to start writing, because they have that like luxury of being able to completely utilize like electronics, but also they have a drummer that can play like metal, and but then they can also do the dancey stuff. And so it's like, how do you hone in on what sound you're wanting to? And it's like, well, physically map it out, like here you go. And like I've done it before, and it's why I kind of don't like jamming, because to like write, because like everything's at 11 and you just can't hear anything, so you kind of get away with something, and then all of a sudden you're in a studio setup where the microscope's on you, and you're like, oh my god, is that what you've been playing? And you're like, yeah. And then you're like, oh, that doesn't work at all, but you couldn't notice it. So
Right.
like sometimes whenever I'm at home, I'll even be like, here is, you know, boundaries for how long the intro can be, because I love writing like a big massive long intro, and then the song's like 8 minutes, and I'm like, oh, half of it is the intro because there's just such a cool build up. So it's like, give yourself 30 seconds for this, and then
Right.
here you go here, and you almost like block yourself in, and then if it goes beyond that a little bit, you're not too devastated, but it's just, it helps like reel it in a little bit, so you almost have your song mapped out, and then if you want to play with the form after, you could be like, well, why don't we like start with the chorus, or put this here, or you know, double this. Like limiting it can actually like make it much less overwhelming, and sort of allow you to kind of work within, you know, there's not going to be like a mad solo while there's like another guitar thing happening underneath, because I just know we physically can't do that. So
Mhm.
it's nice to almost have like boundaries almost.
Yeah, is being able to replicate everything you do live a factor for you, or are you kind of content to add stuff to the mix that you necessarily couldn't replicate, but as long as it serves the song?
I think I think as long as we could play it and you could go, that's that song,
Yeah.
I'm happy enough with whether we have to play it a little bit different, or whether there has to be like, you know, an electronic element dropped or something like that. I don't think there's ever been a moment where I'm like, I'm gonna let the like synths take like the forefront here.
Yeah.
Um, which is like, because I know that they're not gonna be happening live. I think again that's like a kind of limitation, but I'm happy to have it, because and there was like a great I kind of just like steal all of my like mindsets from other people 100%, because I'm there was like
Learn from the best.
it's all from like these making of documentaries as well. And there was like one of Mastodon, and they were in, he was like, I put everything on it, man. He's like, put sitar, put fucking, you know, chimes, all this. And he was like, put the weird like moog on it and all. And he was like, because, you know, so what if we can't play it live? Like when I'm dead, the record's still going to be there, and it's going to be so juicy, and it's going to have all these like little hidden things in it and stuff. And I'm like, what a great mindset.
Yeah.
They obviously probably can use backing tracks and stuff as well, but like I think it's a great mindset to have, as long as underneath all of that like nice like sprinkling on the top, your song still sounds like your song. So there's
Hmm.
been like a few ones where, you know, for us, there's like a rhythm playing underneath, and Sam's doing like a high thing, and it just sounds really, really weak, because we're having to lose that like chunky rhythm guitar at the bottom live. But we've then went back and been like, well, what if you played it like this? And I actually like changed the way so it's not just a one string riff. He's actually playing like a more chordal thing. you know, you just sort of work it out afterwards. Like when you're releasing it, it's got to be the best. You know, I don't want, just for the sake of, oh, it's going to sound exactly the same live. I don't want to be like, well, this recording now sounds like really empty.
Yeah.
So there's a nice balance to try and get, I think. Um, but it's all down to your own like personal judgment as well. But yeah, I think I sort of suffer from trying to cram like so much into the recordings because it's just all there and then just like subtly blend them. So if it wasn't there, you wouldn't like notice. But when it's not
Yeah.
there, you're like, oh, I kind of miss that a little bit. Like,
Finally, I want to talk about your new EP that's coming out on the 18th, I believe. Love and Other Obsessions. Man, this is like I think this is a great introduction, I think, to your project if people aren't familiar with it. It really shows kind of versatile range. I just took some notes here from some of the songs, but like High Praise, for example, has like very nasty, kind of heavy post-punk. It reminded me of the band Mets a lot. Yeah, the
cool,
in-between kind of is incorporating metalcore. Give It Up is pop, and as you were saying, kind of like very focused on kind of the bass line is so critical to that song. Common Pain has kind of more the electronic beats and that kind of side of things. It's very, it's very interesting how it kind of plays with so many different conventions and it's kind of all over the place. Yet is consistently sound like it makes sense as a continuous piece. How did you do that?
it's mad because it's sort of like, because everything that we've been talking about, this sort of playing in the kind of shitty punk bands and then coming through and then getting more polished and then drawn from all of your different influences while we are getting like older and doing it, stuff is being written always, and like little ideas or little riffs. And after a while, I mean, this is the same computer that I've had forever. So everything is on it. And after a while, like the hard drive is like, it's full up.
Yeah.
So I was like, wouldn't it be great to just like have a project where I could like, like clean house, just get all of the old stuff and all the old unfinished stuff and just finish them and then they're done and then we can like they can be off it and it can just absolutely like clear a load of space. And it sounds so dumb, but it was
You
so
could just
perfect.
buy another external hard drive.
I know, and I'm like, I could just get another computer and I could, and I'm just like, I love this thing so much and I hate it at the same time. I'm like,
Right.
just work, please. But like it was great because it almost has acted as a sort of like diary or journal for that kind of aging because I can look at these songs and be like, I remember when I wrote that and I can remember what bands I was into right then and I'm still into them, but I
Mhm.
just forgot. And then I think there's only two on it that were actually written sort of while we were doing it, like kind of to modernize it and to like tie all the like sound directions that we were going in. I think that ended up being, I think it was Give It Up and then possibly Time and Need on the last track on it. They were like completely finished and written within that sort of like last couple of years. But all of the rest of them are, it's sort of a cross section to all of the stuff that we are into. And they might have been a little bit more kind of like in their lane at the start. And then it's sort of our job to be like, right, well, how do they all become like a cohesive sort of piece? And that was more of what the writing process was because we were able to just pick what songs we felt maybe flowed or could flow. But then after the fact, it's like, right, well, let's finish them. And again, what ties it together for me as well is like production wise as well, it's always going to be the same amp or it's always going to be the same drum kit. So on some level, it's going to sort of sound the same. Whereas like if we're six different drum kits or like six different studios or six different people playing on it, it starts to have that jaggedy
Right.
thing. But there is like a common sort of theme, like mix wise. But I think it was just, I don't know, like you just sort of at the start pick songs that you feel like are gonna represent it. And because of all that, like the lyrics were already done. Like I was looking back being like, well, I had like written a full song here. So
Yeah.
then that's where that like theme comes through, which to me again ties it together in this sort of, again, it's like the melancholy sort of, it's either like romanticism or like romanticism of like pain. It's so emo
Yeah.
like, but it is, it's like it's our job to tie it together because
Well, I mean, romanticism in its kind of traditional sense of the word about, which is kind of like reflecting on feelings and subjective experiences, I guess. Not to
yeah.
be pretentious humanity student about it.
But it is, and that's it. Like
Actually, I have a degree in the. Sorry.
you're so right though, like because you're just like years and years of songs, like that. Like the first track is from when I was like 17, so it was very much that like punky kind of stuff. And then the second tune is like from the last couple of years, so we're into all the pop music, but it's like we still want it to feel heavy and have these like driving drums and like that same kind of DIY thing. So like it is just, it's your job to try and tie it together. And like I don't know. I mean, we're not sick of it yet, and we've been sitting on it for like years and years. So
Yeah.
like that to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I still really like that. Like I'm really
Well, it sounds
pleased.
really fresh still. I mean, like even though you're talking about kind of the incorporation of kind of like years of material, I mean, it seems like very contemporary.
Appreciate that. It's that thing of like I would tinker forever. Do you know what I mean? Because like you're always learning and think. So there had to be a point where it's like, right, we're completely finished with it. Otherwise, I would probably still be like mixing it and trying to add things and being like, oh, we'll re-record that. So
Yeah.
like that then does become a worry to me that as soon as it's recorded, I'm like, right, well, we need to get it out so it doesn't like go really stale because
Yeah.
like music is like changing all the time. And
Right.
like,
Well, what's really interesting too is that like, you're talking about like the kind of punk bands from your teenage days, but I think like in the 10 years or however long there has been a resurgence of like post-punk. And I think uh, oddly enough, I mean, it makes those songs, I think, feel contemporary because
right.
just because the shifting tides of the
Yeah,
music scene.
it's such a happy accident as well because like we were just so lazy that we just waited for the trend to come back. Because like when I was writing it, there's like some like 80s synth on it. And I mean, like
Yeah.
even that was like 5 years ago now, where like the kind of 80s thing came back. And then now it's sort of moved into the 90s again. And it's a kind of grunge thing. And I'm sure like the naughty stuff will come around. And we've kind of like we've just waited so long that they've all come back around at the same time. And I'm like, get this EP out now, man. Like, get it out.
Well, that's the interesting too, because I mean, it really does seem like you guys are kind of doing your own thing without consideration for what's in vogue, and I think that's how art should be. It shouldn't be. I think unfortunately now, just kind of the way we kind of like sort of live. I mean, a lot of things are about not necessarily hopping on trends, but more so trying to hit things when they're most optimal in kind of public consciousness. And I don't know, I just don't think art should be that way, but obviously it is. And I think, with kind of music, there is kind of a bit of a thing between like, art and commerce where, you can see kind of organic music scenes kind of growing, like, for example, like the 2000s kind of indie rock revival, or like the new metal from that era too. And it's not coincidental that a lot of that stuff kind of gets popular at the same time, but it's, simultaneously, a lot of it is born out of organic musicians from different places, trying to create something new and fresh. So yeah, it's an interesting thing too. I just think art should be art, but I understand that it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, but I get that as well because like it's like I feel like anybody who makes music or can like play or anybody could probably write any genre if you heard like a few songs from it. So if you're surrounded by like video clips where it's like this 90s tune, you're hearing that all the, oh, I want to give that a go. Like,
Yeah.
whereas I think now the age that we are growing up on that kind of 90s, noughties pop punk and stuff, that's so like in us
Yeah.
that it comes naturally. So we're still just playing like we've always played, but everybody's sort of starting to rediscover that now because of the internet and things like that. So you get this like influx of people being like the age now where we maybe like have enough money that we can put our own stuff out, or actually like get it out in public. But that kind of music, it's not changed. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
We're still playing the stuff that we loved whenever we were like teenagers, but now teenagers now are finding that music and the contemporary stuff from the people who were influenced by it in the first place.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So
I absolutely do. Yeah,
it's
you're
such a
trailblazers.
weird, yeah, it's like such a weird
Yeah.
cycle. Not just us, of course, but like, but
You're like
it's
looking back, being like, "Oh, you caught up."
yeah, legit. And now you just see it, but the cycle is getting so much shorter. Like I remember the
Yeah,
80s stuff lasted for ages, and then the 90s stuff was over in like 2 years, and now I'm like the naughty stuff is gonna be here, and then it's probably gonna go back to the 80s again. And I'm like, I love it because all of that stuff is just so good, and
yeah.
it and we
Well,
all
I am
love all
noticing
of that.
a huge like pop punk revival lately.
Hmm.
Seemingly like across the world. It's interesting because actually pop punk, I think again, if you weren't around for it, was actually quite maligned. I remember it was very popular, like especially things like Blink-182, Sum 41, who recently split up. Kind of like a lot of those acts were like really, really big, but and they would sell out like massive venues, but at the same time, a lot of people would kind of give them shit, especially in like punk communities. It was like, oh, that's not punk, that's
Yeah, it's not real
pop
punk.
punk and all
Yeah.
this. Yeah, yeah. Like if it was like there was kind of like I guess the 77 punkers and the like Warped Tour kind of punkers, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? There
yeah,
was that kind of divide where it's like, oh, people give out about it, but it's like, I don't know, man, like, whether it's Green Day or, Newfound Glory or it's the Sex Pistols or the Ruts or whatever, it's like as long as it's good, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't see, but again, it kind of goes back to that sort of as we're kind of talking about the kind of genre inclined sort of uh parameters you would kind of put
yeah.
yourself in.
Like the this or
Um
that. Like it
yeah,
can't be both.
exactly.
Yeah.
You couldn't just like everything. You couldn't,
Yeah.
But it was interesting too because sometimes you'd see like Green Day and they'd have maybe like like Rancid or something open for them, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like people were like, oh well, I want to see Rancid, but I want to see Green Day. It was like
Yeah.
there was acceptable levels of kind of pop punk because actually I remember like being those kind of scenes and people arguing like why it's okay to like listen to No Effects but not Blink-182 and all these
Yeah.
kind of things. I'm like, all right, well, who gives a shit?
Yeah. That like gatekeepery kind of thing. And it just
Exactly.
I did that for years whenever I was growing up. Like, because I was
Yeah.
just teenager and being all
Well,
like, oh
even
yeah.
then the kind of thing, like as more bands kind of got added into the fold, suddenly they became uncool. So, for example, it's like, well, you can listen to Blink-182, but not Yumi at Six or
Yeah,
whatever. And
yeah.
it
But they
was
were
always like
obviously
another
influenced
thing.
by them.
Yeah,
Like,
but it was always like another thing. It was always like,
yeah.
okay, well, given enough time, that becomes acceptable, but not this new thing.
Yeah.
It's
You
kind of
just have to
like
stick around for long enough for people to be like, oh,
exactly.
well, maybe they are like a mainstay, so that's all right. Or you need to like, I don't know, it just you shutting yourself off from any genre is like can be so like damaging, you know what I mean?
It's
Like
kind of
it's
childish too. Yeah.
yeah, and it, like talk about like your guilty pleasures and all that kind of stuff, and it's
Yeah.
like, man, no, just like own it, like own all of it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
whether you think it's like you would hate for somebody to like hear you listening to it in the car, like nah, like if it's good, it's good, and if it's good to you, then fucking great. Like love it. Like
Well, that's one thing I always like kind of appreciate about my understanding of the music scene up north from someone who's kind of detached from it is that I actually think you guys are kind of better than we are at really venerating the kind of the entire music of Northern Ireland because like for example you go to the Oh Yeah Music Centre and it's like they're paying equal reverence to Van Morrison as they are Therapy as they are Ash as they
mm-hmm.
are like all these kind of like very dispersed acts and now obviously, I mean, I suppose you'd include acts like Kneecap or things like that, where it's like, again, it seems like everyone, it seems like there's an appreciation, and perhaps it is because I think actually I remember Andy Kearns of Therapy once saying that, kind of similar to something you were saying, where he was like, anytime a band would come to Belfast, he would make sure he was there to support it because, especially back then when he was growing up, it would have been during the Troubles, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
acts very seldomly came to Belfast or to the north, so anytime they did, it was like thank you for coming. It was just his way of showing appreciation. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that kind of history has kind of shaped the appreciation of people who were still wanted to put on good nights for people going through that kind of like turmoil. And still kind of fuck it. No, we want to, put on shows. We want to put on gigs. I don't know. Like I could just be speculating there, but I was wondering, how do you find the kind of music scene up north differs from down south?
Well, I think you're right about that as well. And I think it's why like punk was such a massive thing because it's such a like
Yeah,
release
yeah,
of like a genre of music that gives you that like release of anger and tension and stuff. There's like a kind of weird euphoria in that. So like I guess to me that's why that did so well. But also I think like Northern Ireland is so small. Like when I actually genuinely think about it, like I don't know, like the town I'm from is like 20,000 population or something. And
mm,
even when I go to Belfast now, I'm still like, whoa, this is massive. And then like if we go to Dublin and play a show, I'm like, holy shit, like this is big. And then like we're not playing over there, but like if we're ever like taking a trip over to the UK, like we had family in Scotland, we go over there and I'm like, this is huge. So
yeah,
I think it's because like everybody knows everybody up here. So it's like when a new band comes through, that's my friend's brother's band, or that's, you
yeah.
know, my cousin. Everybody just knows. So it's like, it feels very like familial. Like
Hmm.
they're definitely like the community side of it. You know these people and you've probably come up playing in bands with their drummer or something like that. But it's small enough that regardless of what kind of genre there is, you just are forced to like it because, you know, it's kind of all we've got. There's not a million different bands coming through. You know what I mean? It's like there's only a finite amount of people here. There's only going to be a finite amount of bands, but it's all from this one country. Like we all have to like work together to kind of get the microscope on Northern Ireland as a music scene because it's freaky because there's so much talent coming out of it and it's so small and it's the same with like
Yeah.
sports and things like that. I just think we are kind of like an underdog of a country. So we really like dig in. And again, like that DIY thing and like the punky thing, I'm not massively familiar with like how like the Dublin scene is or how like down south works or things like that. But from what you've said and hearing what you said, it's probably just a size thing. Like
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
because like the more people there are, the more chance there is that you're going to get like lost in this sea of talent coming through. So it can be like a downside for it being such a small, isolated country, but you can also end up gaining this really close knit sense of community because of your size. You almost have to like band together. But I don't know. I hope that it keeps going and it keeps growing and stuff. And like people can start to like branch out into like mainland UK or we've been really fortunate to be like down in Dublin a couple of times this year and like you know like having like a little bridge between it that it becomes like the norm, whereas like
Hmm.
before, like when we were like 15 it'd be like, imagine playing Dublin, that's like a million miles away kind of thing, and it's like
Yeah.
the world just feels that little bit more accessible now.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I think I've asked everything I have to ask. It's very nice talking with you, Shane. It was
Yeah,
really a lot of fun, I thought, man.
yeah, man, loved it.
Uh, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up? Obviously, you have the EP coming out October 18th. Anything else you have planned for the rest of the year? Gigs, anything like that? Or
We I think we are going to, yeah, remove everything I just said because I think we are going to mainland UK. Like I think we're trying to get over there in November. I think that's running from the 18th of November maybe. And that'll be
okay,
like our first time ever going over there. We're going over there with Parker. Um
I'm just writing this down. Sorry.
Unreal, man. Yeah, I think it's difficult because I've left that in the hands of Sam.
Right.
So
Well, this will be going
I've
up the
nothing to
day.
do with it.
This will be going up on the 18th. So will
Oh, class.
everything be announced by then? Or
Oh, yeah, I think so as well.
okay,
Yeah. And I
perfect.
mean, just
If not, I'll just
basically
say keep an eye out on the social medias and things like that.
legit, yeah. Like I'm
Yeah.
so bad at having all the dates for things like that in, but just the EP, there are physical copies this time, which is great. Like every other time, it's always just been digital,
Right.
go on Spotify and stream this. But because it's like a body of work now, it was so important to me to get like physical copies. There's like a really nice booklet, and I like wrote all the lyrics out and things. So like if you feel inclined to pick one of those up, like there's always just follow all the social medias because there's links to everything there, and it's probably like the easiest way to get stuff like that. But there's pre-orders up. But you're saying this will
Cool.
be out now, so yeah, try and pick one of those up if you like if you get what we're talking about here. Like,
I always, whenever I like do interviews with people, I try to. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Back to the Future 3. It's not really a movie I like that much, but there's a bit in that where they're talking about like they don't have enough space to get the DeLorean going, and he's like, "Well, we could do it on the train tracks, which aren't finished yet." And he's like, "Well, the train tracks aren't finished." And he goes, "Yeah, but you're not thinking three-dimensionally. They will be finished in the future."
yeah,
That's I always think of that line in my head. You're not thinking three-dimensionally, because I often have I'll do interviews with people and I'm like, well, this will be going up on the day. And they're like, yeah, so the single's out like 2 weeks from now. And I'm like, no, that's going to confuse
yeah,
people, even
like
though I'm
legit.
sure no one actually gives a shit. But I'm always like, no, I don't have a
Yeah, but
respect for my
not thinking
readership or my
three
listenership.
dimensionally.
I don't respect their intelligence enough to go, no, they'll understand that this was pre-recorded.
It's so good. Yeah, we're doing this right now. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So it's now the future, and oh my God, everything that's happened. I can't believe they got Trump. Um, now if that actually does happen, I'm gonna get fucking
I
investigated.
know that's
I'm based on precedent, okay? There've been two assassination attempts thus far. Anyway, that went down a weird tangent. Thanks
love
very
it, man.
much, Shane.
Love it.
And best of luck at everything. If you ever want to do it again, I'm always around.
Would love to, man. Yeah, I had such a good time as well. Thank you so much for doing it as well.
Oh, absolutely, man. Cheers for doing it.
No, appreciate it, man. Here, take care as well.
You too, man. But enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, you too. Well, I got to go to work now.
Oh shit. Well, enjoy
Leave it.
work.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye, bud.
Hey, girl, can you hear me? Good.
Hello.
How's it going?
Hey man, how's it going? Can you hear
That's
me?
grand. Sweetie, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm just in the local across the road. That's okay. 'Cause the
Grand.
house is a bit busy. So, cheers.
Cheers. One sec. Cheers.
Sound good. Thanks very much for taking an interest.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Yeah, no, and thanks for doing it, man. I'll try and take up too much of your time. I just had a couple of questions. Kind of
No worries.
a little bit of background on the band, I guess. Like the first thing I was going to ask simply was, well, for yourself, I mean, how did you kind of get into music and what was your kind of first instrument and all that?
Um, been playing in punk bands since I was about 13.
Hmm.
Um, actually, there's a band called Big Tears going around. Have you heard of
Yeah,
them, maybe?
yeah,
Judy, the lead singer of that band, me and her had a band when we were 13, called SPG. It lasted about a year, maybe less. And then, yeah, just in like kind of a rock and roll band. Another mate called Bebop and Rocksteady, and then just I just played all throughout my teens, and then kind of knocked on the head in my early 20s and got into like DJing and stuff. And I had been playing for years. Then yeah, about 10 years ago, kind of got back into it, and yeah, wish I never gave it up, to be honest, because I'm
yeah.
35 now. And
Just a baby.
well, it feels like it would have been nicer if I was doing this at 24, But
Yeah.
but we're having fun.
What were you kind of like listening to initially that kind of got you into punk music? Because I think there's something about punk when you kind of like look at it, the kind of DIY touring, going around playing like squats in Europe and bars across the place and all. There's something really appealing about it. You know what I mean?
But I think probably what got me. I mean, I think my cousin gave me an Offspring CD, really Americana, and I remember playing Tony Hawk's. I mean, I must have been 10, probably. Tony Hawk's one. So can you hear me when you do that?
I can hear you fine. Yep.
Right. And so I just remember playing Tony Hawk's one, putting the sound off and that. Let's do Americana. And then getting bored of it and then playing Tony Hawk's, then you hear like Police Struck, the
Yeah.
Dead Kennedys,
They can these. Yep.
which later became massive. But like also then Tony Hawk's 2, Bad Religion. Bad Religion were massive ones for me now.
They're the
Again,
band that got me into music as well, I'd say. I love Bad
they
Religion.
I went into Tower Records when I was probably 13, 14. Around the time me and you were in that band, we used to always go to Tower Records the weekend and buy 1 or 2 CDs. And I wanted to just, it was a lot of Bad Religion albums. They were a bit expensive. Remember Tower
Yeah.
Records? They were
Yeah.
but they had this album called 80 to 85, which had like 30 songs on it or something. I was like, well, I'm going to get this because it has the most songs in it. But it wasn't what I was expecting at all. It was the more of that early, How Could Hell Be Any Worse?
Yeah.
And then the EP after it. Excuse me.
Back to the Known, yeah.
I don't even think that was on it. That kind of
Oh,
space
it was
rock.
the Bad Religion EP, the first one they put out. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. It was
With
just
like Politics and all those songs on it. Yeah.
It was basically just How Could Hell Be Any Worse and a few extras.
Yeah.
But like that,
I had that one too. I had that one as well. Yeah. It was the first. They did a re-release. How Could Hell Be Any Worse, wasn't it?
It was their first proper album anyway. But like, I thought I was getting the more kind of early 90s stuff.
Yeah.
But got sidetracked by that album. And that's just like, it's actually still, just having a record at home now, it's actually flawless stuff. It's like proper, not that melodic because you can still hear his voices, man, you own it.
Yeah.
So he hasn't got that kind of, real political, but he does have political now. But it's a great hardcore punk album. And then from there, it went off to like Black Flag, Winning Threat, Dead Kennedys, Bad Brains.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. Yeah.
That's kind of a similar trajectory to me. I was kind of like that too. I got into Bad Religion, and then I got into like Dead Kennedys and all that. And then it was a very similar trajectory. I was really like I always liked the kind of West Coast hardcore punk a bit more than the East Coast stuff. That's my personal opinion.
West, that's LA's group, is it?
Yeah, it's all the Californian punk bands. I was kind of into that as well.
Bands like X's, the bands like X.
I liked X. Yeah, I liked X.
Yeah. I like Los Angeles again. That was on probably another Tommy Hawk song. Tommy Hawk's in fairness did help, but I don't know. I was into the DC stuff, all the stuff like Grey Matter were brilliant bands that I thought were very underrated. That was that kind of double EP album, Take It Back or something, I think it's called.
Yeah,
loved that. And then a lot of the DC stuff, but then kind of went off onto lots of worse stuff, found the Beatles and stuff, man. And I didn't listen to
the hardcore punk, the Beatles trajectory.
It was a weird one, yeah. They made the show me. I think it was Grey Matter were doing a cover. They did a cover of I Am the Walrus. And my mate was a mad Beatles. My mate was a mad Beatles fan. He showed me the original. I was mad into it. So it was about a year or two period there. Didn't listen to anything about the Beatles. So not very punk.
Actually, did you ever hear the Dead Kennedys cover of Back in the USSR?
No.
It's on their album Live at the Deaf Club. It's really good if you can check it out. It's on it's easy to find, but it's on their live album and it's really good.
I'll give that a go. That'll be interesting to hear.
I have a quick question for you, actually, just based on what you're saying. What was your favorite Black Flag lineup, if you have one, or favorite singer even?
But the thing is, the album that I had was I robbed off a mate of mine, Dan. It was the first 4 years.
Yes, so that's a great one. Yeah.
So it's another compilation, isn't it, of the first kind of stuff? But like, is it so you're getting Keith for the first few, and then are you getting Dez then?
I think you get Ron, and then I think Dez. First, I think Dez only sang a few. Dez, if you want Dez, I think his stuff was on. What's that one? What's that one with the hedge?
Is it?
Another one?
Oh, yeah, I know what we're talking about, mate.
Yeah, it's called Everything Went Black or something like that.
Oh, that's a bit layering then.
But he's on that. I think Dez might be on that, but yeah, I think it's mainly Keith and Ron.
It's the Keith stuff, man. It's the Keith. Yeah. That's on American Waste. Always grabbing me as well. Like, we used to cover Six Pack like every other band back in the day as well. But like, that stuff really got me. It was only really later actually into me, only the early 20s almost, that I kind of went into the Rollinsy stuff.
Yeah,
because at the time that was weird.
Yeah, I know it's difficult to get into. Like that stuff is like when you first listen to like Slip It In or you listen to My War, it's just a difficult.
Well, My War was My War. Just a couple of songs here and there. My War was great. Gimme was great. The ones that kind of like stand out off the album. And you like the Slip It In is even a bit more down, and then you listen to the album tracks and I was like, this is like psychedelic shit.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'll tell you, man. Like I think they got it right. Like that style they were going for on their last album before they broke up. It's called Paralyzed or something like that. The album is called, I think. Well, the first song is called Paralyzed. It's their last album they did anyway, as like their last studio album before. Well, they since came back and they did that album. Which
band are you talking about, man? Flag or
Black Flag? They're still going under the Black Flag label. Yeah, it's one that's it's Greg Ginn's band.
Greg, yeah, of course,
So
yeah.
yeah,
And
all right,
then
but
and
I'm
then
just saying that,
Keith's doing the flag with a couple
yeah.
of otherwise, isn't
Are
he?
they
Yeah.
still going? Are they, dude? I
I
was
think that I
happy.
think I think they played here about a year ago or so. I might be
No,
wrong.
that was Greg's one that
Oh,
played.
was it?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was thinking of going, but like I don't know. It was the same. They did the Dead Kennedys one just after DH died, but I'm like, well, I don't really want to see Dead Kennedys without Jello, you know?
But I have to say, right, so fucking East Bay Ray was a massive influence on me. Like
Yeah,
stuff
no,
like that.
totally, he's great.
Like he was amazing. Like, there's a couple of songs we have, Dude Almighty, especially that we put out early last month. Like there's obviously like a kind of a rancid little bass line Matt Freeman thing there. But like the real choppy guitars, I actually had that main first guitar since I was 14 and never got to use it. We slapped it in there and it was East Bay Ray, kind of that real quick, choppy, changey stuff, even with a
Yeah.
little kind of surf solo at the end of it. But yeah, he was great. What was I going to say to you? I don't know the best. I always liked you won Kira Rossiter? Is that how
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying it?
yeah.
Like
Kira
the stuff
Russell,
I
I
heard,
think, yeah.
the stuff I heard with her on it is dead. It's definitely different than I like that. But
Yeah.
I don't know. They actually wear like that kind of late '80s stuff is kind of psychedelic as fuck, man. It's weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially, do you like Husker Du?
mate. They're a band I never got into, but I was only watching
They're kind of like
their
that too.
they were like that. I was only watching the documentary. I think it's on YouTube. Like it's a kind of a Husker Du documentary. Maybe I
Yeah.
downloaded it, but it's unreal. But I never. There's loads of bands that skip you boy. There's too
Yeah,
many of
yeah.
them. But
No, but that
yeah,
album is really psychedelic Center Arcade. If you ever listen to it, that's like real mixture of like psychedelic and punk and post-hardcore and all that. It's really
well, I'll give
it's
it a
one of my
go.
favorite records ever. Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, you say no more.
Well, just for me, my opinion. No, but the problem is because they had Spot, who's the SST producer. He passed away recently, actually, but he produced it, so the production's not as great as it could have been. But it was like it's a 70-minute album that was like made in 2 days, so it's like all right.
70 minutes.
Yeah, it's like
Fucking hell.
double length. Yeah, yeah, but it's really good. I've listened to it like so many times. But
That's a good go.
so
That's a
yeah,
long
like
one for a punk album.
and then like so that kind of explains like your punk background. But I was wondering then because like also like obviously with Dumb Posh Hippies, I mean a bit of punk, bit of psychedelic. What kind of got you into kind of psych rock?
I guess honestly, it was like I was working, doing club nights and stuff, like house nights and stuff.
Hmm.
And during the day, we used to have an office in town, and some of the lads be playing, like obviously playing a lot of house and techno and stuff. But, we might go put it on. Just, I don't know, it was kind of veering away from that stuff. I wasn't listening to it as much. And Tame Impala's first album came out. So, like,
Right.
listen, people will have their issues with Tame Impala, but those first two records still, especially the first one, and the second was great as well. And I used to just slap that on, and I don't know, it was a bit of a game changer. And then from there, you kind of go, oh, who else is in this band? Oh, your man's in a band called Boom, and they did this Australian scene, it was fucking bananas. King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard are a massive
Hmm.
for me. Like this kind of the new wave, but it's not really new anymore, though, is it? It's like it must be 15 years old. Like
Yeah, something like
The
that. Yeah.
bands like the OCs, and like I don't know, it's kind of endless. You, you can get really lost in all those bands because there's so
Yeah.
many of them. Like
Yeah.
there's a great band called Frankie and the Witch Fingers out right now. Like they all kind of sound like it's the same, but like you can tell you can put the King Gizzard are kind of going long enough now, and the OCs are going long enough that the next way their bands they influence
Yeah, they're
are
geriatrics.
they're all coming out now,
Yeah, yeah.
and that last Frankie and the Witch Fingers album, Empire, is fucking incredible, but yeah, that's it kind of how got to that, and then yeah, and then you kind of go further back. But at the same time, like you see, mad at the Pink Floyd and stuff back in the day, and from there getting into the Sid Barrett stuff, and it was
Mhm.
always kind of around in a way. Only recently I started listening to Zappa, maybe since COVID. So like it's hard to keep track of it all. But yeah, definitely the last 15 years, trying to find weirder and weirder psychedelic stuff. But then I love when they actually kind of there's a band called Being Dead. Did you hear them?
I don't know
Kind
them.
of mad into them at the moment. Just put their second album out there, but it's like almost like the anti-folk stuff, like Moldy
Yeah,
Peaches and all that, which I
yeah.
really liked back when that was around. But it has this like psychedelic kind of almost 60s style vibe to it and all, and I don't know. I think a lot of music has kind of been influenced by either the recent or the past psychedelic stuff, and it's nice. I mean, it's coming out and like, yeah, man, fucking Joe, isn't it? What's the Joe Carey from fucking
Yeah, for Treasure Things.
Stranger Things? Like he was in a great band called Post Animal,
Yeah.
and their first album's fucking incredible. And he was in that band. He's gone off and done his own thing. Like there's too much of it around, so it's kind of easy to paint a broad brush of like this is all sound the same, it's all crap. Some of it is, like some of
Yeah.
it is, but you have to go diving. Was that a long-winded answer or what?
No, not at all. Actually, Australia is great at the moment because like as you mentioned, like you kind of have that like really great kind of psych scene, but also you see like a lot of the punk they're bringing out, and it seems like you think of
Hamlin and the
bands like
Sniffers.
the Chats, all them, and
Yeah,
it's like it's not only punk, it's not even like it's kind of like because I think the Australian version of like proto punk is like pub rock scene they had
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And it's really a callback to that, and it's very unique and it's very like interesting, I think, and it's obviously getting like really popular. And like it seems to be like a really great like scene in general. And
And
obviously,
it's not just in one city either, is it?
yeah,
Because you
no,
have Perth. Melbourne obviously seems to be a bit of a hotspot. There's loads of bands in Sydney, loads of bands in Perth, which is a bit
yeah,
more isolated.
yeah,
It's just everywhere, and it's not even like again you have Stella Donnelly, like Paul. There's so many good different types of music coming out there. It's fascinating actually to watch from
yeah.
afar. Like I've seen that band Pond once in Whelan, so it was half empty. Like and they're all playing in 10 pounds. Didn't give a rest, but now they're kind of I don't know. It's bananas. The Irish we can go on for days with the Irish music scene, but it's kind of heartbreaking. Although the ambassador opening up is back up is good news.
I know. So yeah, Evan Dando played there, right? So they've been doing some shows.
Your man from fucking what was he in?
Lemonheads.
The Evanheads.
Yeah, he was sort of the first musical act I think since like 2008 to bring it out, and but they've been doing like comedy shows and stand-up shows now. I'm interested in seeing it as a music venue because that was probably one of my favorite clubs.
Did you
But
see Bad Religion there?
no, for I was way too young. I wasn't into them at that time, but I'd love to have seen them.
I
Like
was, I,
that's the
I
annoying
was,
thing. They haven't played here since 2004.
that's the gig I was at. Is
I
that the
love them.
ambassador? Is that the ambassador?
Yeah, they played there twice. Yeah, they played in
My
2002, 2004.
it
I
was
was mad.
I think it was the Empire Strikes First album.
Yeah. That was
Me,
in
me, me
2004.
dad, my dad brought me to a parked outside around the corner and waited for me outside. I went in. I was with these. I mean, I'm small, but I was tinier then. These
Yeah.
Australian punks just grabbed me. We'll take care of you, lad. I was up on their shoulders. They were throwing me around. I came out black and blue. Like me dad was like, "What the fuck was the best gig ever?" The ambassador was the businessman. Like
Yeah.
again, like seeing like I mean, talking about I've seen like actually Justice and Block Party and all that sort. It's such a great venue.
I
Like
know.
it's just a big pit, like
Yeah.
I wonder is it still the same? Have they cornered shit off or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. I think because I remember for years they did exhibitions there. That's what they did afterwards, and then they just
A
kind of
lot of
stopped doing
dead
gigs
bodies.
there. Yeah, yeah. I actually went to that and it was interesting too, man, because the way they did it was so if you don't know like the structure of the ambassador, so basically um when you go in, you have the balcony up there, but then for the ground floor, the right is where the general audience goes in.
Yeah,
That's the ground floor. To the left, is actually the backstage area. So if you go into the left door, that's actually the backstage area. So what they did was when they did those exhibitions, they opened each door out, so you go in basically the way the audience would go into a gig. You go through that door, and
yeah.
then the exhibition itself is on the ground floor where people be standing, and then you basically walk up the stage and exit out through the backstage area. It's really
Bananas.
cool. It's
That's
really like,
bananas.
and it's mad though, man. Like I'm telling you, it's a weird thing because you're up on that stage and you're just like looking out and you're like, shit, man, this is where all this like fucking like Josh Homme was at and all this,
And
you
it's
know.
big. It is big enough. Like, was it? Was it?
It's pretty
It's,
big,
was
yeah.
it? Was it about 800, 900 people, or was it
I'd
that
say
big?
probably more than that. I don't know the capacity offhand, but I'd say like yeah, I was thinking about this, right? Because like I was thinking like since that's been gone, like a couple of places have kind of taken like the bands that would generally play the Ambassador are now moving either to like the Academy, National Stadium, the Olympia, and I wonder like who the clientele is going to be for that now.
Well, they were. It was perfect for, let's say, a Bad Religion because it
Yeah,
would sell out because they can. I mean, they just need to sell out. I mean, they definitely didn't play the Academy. The Tivoli was kind of when it was there.
I was so
Uh,
sad that closed. I was so sad.
Mates of mine ran that club District 8 there, you know, and it was just a heartbreaking thing. But I remember going to see your man Anthony Jeselnik, you know, that comedian.
No,
I
yeah.
seen him there 2 weeks before the Tivoli closed. Like he came out with like 5 minutes on just the Tivoli closing. Like it's like it was just like saying he ended the fucking ship and all. But
Well, that was the thing because they started doing shows here just before club. Because they used to do shows here and then they stopped for ages. I think they did wrestling nights and they did some club nights, but in terms of actual concerts, they stopped for a while. And then for the last 2-3 years, I saw a few bands there. I saw Shellac there. Rest in peace.
Unreal.
I saw they were great. I saw the Horrors there. I saw Death from Above 1979 there. I'm trying to think like just before it closed.
Was this right before it closed?
Yeah, so this would have been Shellac was 2017. I think the others were like 2018. Yeah, it was just before they closed. They started doing shows there again.
Great spot, man. And you're forgetting all the fucking skateboarding and graffiti shit they used to do at the back and all. And I don't know.
Obviously, you had Drop Dead Twice, which I loved as well.
I know that fucking burned down, didn't it? Ireland's doing well, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know, actually, what's funny is like Drop Dead Twice reminds me so much. I don't know if you agree with me, but it reminds me so much of On Shot. Like On Shot just feels like the new Drop Dead Twice.
It would be. Is that On Shot going around longer though? No.
No, I know.
Do you mean Sinead?
Well, no, On Shot because I feel like a lot of the shows that would have went on Drop Dead are now going to On Shot, and I go to On Shot and it feels very similar.
I know what you mean. The upstairs and On Shot.
Yeah, the upstairs. But even like the downstairs reminds me because the downstairs had a really good venue.
The little tiny stage thing.
Yeah. I saw the band. What's a Healthy Junkies, which are a British punk band. They were touring over, and I saw them there. It was just such a good night. Like, it's just such a good venue with like 15 people.
I know. Like, it's you get that now in Sinead, I suppose. But it's. I mean, any venue that goes is horrific, especially that size for bands like us. Like, nobody knows. So it's just like it's a good place to go. And like if you bring like 5 people, and then hopefully the other band brings another 5, and then you get 10 or 15 walk-ins. You have yourself a gig there, buddy.
Yeah. No, and also because, like, you know, you look at somewhere like, say, the Grand Social or something like that, or Soundhouse, like, I think for some acts, they're like a little too big. Like, they're not going to fill that out, really. Because I think the Grand Social holds like 300 or something. So, you know, if you're a small
400.
band,
I used to run a club night there. That was a hard room to fill.
Yeah.
I used to do a Thursday club night.
Dude, I've seen like touring acts there and like playing to half-sold rooms. Yeah,
we're playing there. We're in on November 10th. It's this Sunday. It's a Sunday. It's an all ages thing, you know. But we're playing with Old Plains. We're playing with 50-foot woman. You know, so I think we'll be all right. I think they like that. It's that like alternative Sunday social. Forgive me, I haven't been to it now, but like.
No, it's great. They're putting them on. I haven't been to them myself, but I agree with the.
3 or 4 hours, like, you know, it's like a nice, and it's over at 7 or 8 p.m. I think, and it's all ages. You're getting your mates, kids, and all stuff. You know.
No, that's the thing. I think that's the big vacuum in the Irish music scene is all ages venues, man. I think the Olympia does all ages, the National Stadium does all ages. That's about it.
Were you ever involved in like Basta Youth and all back in the day?
No.
All the Wicklow scene and stuff.
No.
Well, there was a kind of mad DIY thing. I never played any gigs with them.
I didn't know anything about it, to be honest.
Oh man, they used to have this like church where they put gigs on and all. They used to like live in it and all. God, I don't know a lot of like. There was a band called Disco Traitor, and oh god, it's a hazy memory now, but it was a long time ago. Here, hold on 2 seconds. Owen, I'm just gonna get another point. 2 seconds.
Oh, is it?
Sorry, Alan. Sorry, pal. Sorry.
Oh, good.
Sorry for that. So, by the way, I do work. By the way, I just here all day. I'm a postman. I just get off early.
Ah, fair enough. No, man, I love that kind of DIY stuff. Like, it really reminds me of like the European scene where, you know, back in the 70s and 80s, there were all these like youth centers that the various governments in Europe built, and then like the local punkers, when they weren't being used anymore, started putting shows on there and living there and squatting there. I love that.
Oh yeah, I know, and like stuff like that was happening. Not, I mean, like when I was growing up, it was the not the National Arts Centre, the Arts Centre on like beside the Dart Station on Tara Street. But these gigs on there all the fucking time, man. Again, I was just like 14 and 15, but they were always all ages gigs. Thanks a million, man. Appreciate it. Nice and buff.
Yeah, no, it's not the Project Arts that's in Temple Bar. They used to do
No,
stuff there too.
no, it was. I was right before Harrow Street Tire Station, on the
Oh.
on the corner there. And yeah, there was punk gigs. But it was all.
Isn't there where
I,
what's that place, Doyle's or whatever it's called?
do you remember the Dark Horse? Or you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Starbucks now. That's what my mates. My mates
Yeah, yeah, I know the
used to
one.
run. Yeah, have you been there? Have you? Did you ever go to
Yeah,
one of those
this
early raves? Did you?
no, no, I've never been to the gig, but I know the place you're talking about.
Well, yeah. We used to live there in the mornings back in the day. But well, like, mate, dude, this art center thing was incredible. But I think I was hanging out with people who were a bit more, even though they were the same age as me, or sometimes even younger. They were more clued in. I was kind of always like
Yeah.
tagged along, and I felt like I was just like thrown in front of all this stuff, and I honestly didn't know what to think about it, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't figure it out till a few years later. But I got
Yeah.
to see a lot of maybe Added Easy Shank and all that those bands. Maybe I don't know. Who knows?
I'll try not to take away too much of your time, and I just want to talk about the band itself.
Yeah. We
Um,
haven't talked about me band at all. The lads will give
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah.
So.
No, I just got distracted by talking about the old punk scene and shit like that, man. But I think it's really great. Like, actually, well, I'll tie it into the band. How about that? I think it's great, like, to see the kind of punk scene in Ireland really thrive. You were mentioning acts like Full Pines and like all those kind of and the Co-Hanger Solution, Arcadian Nights, all these like
Joe
those
Maxey.
bands that are super persistent. Yep. All these like really like I think the punk scene is really like persisted in Ireland a lot. You see it like venues like the Thomas House putting on shows. I saw the Adolescents there. They put them on stuff like that really cheap, and just all these
Jello plays
bands.
there often, doesn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't he DJs there often? Go
So
on.
like it's insane like how good the Irish music scene is persisted. You see like things with like the Rebellion Festival in Blackpool having like Irish nights and stuff like that now, having like Irish stages and all this like so. And I think it's always been that way. I think like the punk scene in Ireland's persisted. You look at like say the Hope Collective back in the 80s and the 90s and what they started and stuff like that. I was wondering what you think of the kind of Irish punk scene as it is now and how you think your band fits into that, I guess.
It's a difficult question because I don't, as much as I respect it and all, and I feel like I was part of it, and maybe a little bit when I was a lot younger, I feel like I'm coming back into it without knowing a lot about it because I haven't really been as involved as I would have been in a gig here and there. But we've been the people who would be at the top, I suppose. Peter from um, Paranoid Visions.
Mhm.
It has been very nice for us. He's put us on that collaborate that unsigned bullshit 2024. Did you see that? Like that
I
was
did
very
know.
good. It was just like it was our first bit of vinyl that we were on. It was like a lot of unsung Irish acts.
Sick.
And then we got booked for Arcadian Nights, that festival, run by the man from the Arcadian Shadows there, and that was great and stuff. And we've been playing Fibbers a lot and stuff. Like we kind of we love all that stuff, but we do feel like we maybe we're a little bit different just because we're playing some. There's a lot of songs that might be like 10 minutes long,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but then we also have like the 2 minute punkers. So
Yeah,
we're actually trying to find our own feet a little bit
yeah.
still. Like the idea really is to have a synth player and to have another guitarist, and be a loud psych rock band. But we can't help write the punkers, man.
Yeah, yeah.
they keep falling out. And the fact that the Pines have asses to play with them, like they've been I don't know, they've just been doing a lot of good work for the Irish punk scene for a long time now.
Totally,
Actually,
yeah.
I know Molly since again about 15 years. We used to DJ together, so I used to book her in my club nights and stuff. But she's mind me saying that. But yeah, no, honestly, like people have been really nice, and the fact that people have to play somewhere is just Eddie. We're a young enough band. We're only a year and a bit, but we're just trying to throw as many singles and fucking tunes as we can as possible. And but yeah, I don't know if Give us another year, and I'll answer that question proper.
All right, fair enough. But speaking of like you were talking about like the music you're putting out there, like you said, I mean like the EP, your debut EP only came out like a year ago, and I mean already you've had like three follow-up singles and an album worth of remixes. Um,
And another one coming out this weekend.
yeah. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. No, but I was just gonna ask, like, do you record in bulk and try and divvy them out over the course of a year, or are you recording them one at a time and releasing them as they come out?
It's a very simple method, man. Right? So it is no, it's so the first EP. So basically, right, when we started the band, me, Matthew, and Dara, who was the original bass player, we knew Dara was going to be leaving. She's going to be leaving to move to England. Right.
Mhm.
So we started the band. We had a rehearsal. It went really well. It's like, right, let's book a gig before Dara goes away.
Yeah.
Right. So we did that. It was a month away. So we had a month to write a set. We had 3 songs, one from a previous band, another 2 we wrote in the first name. So all right, we had to write another 8 songs. So we had, and we had booked the gig. Got the support acts and all. We had to just write all these songs, and some of them are still playing now. Like that pressure, it was fucking fun. And then we did the gig, and we got a new bass player, and then basically since then it's just like play a few gigs, get enough money to record in our friends. Dara fucking Hanser, who's a good pal of ours.
From
Uh,
DFO.
DFO, yeah, fucking best band in Northern in my opinion. That's just not because he made they're the best band in Northern.
Well,
But
they're working with a lot of acts now, aren't they? Like, yeah, because I was talking with the band Search Results, and they were working with them, I
yeah,
think. And
I'm sure Dara did their first album,
yeah,
and it's a weapon. But so yeah, the idea is just like record, play a few gigs, get that money. None of us, we don't spend the money from the gigs we get. We just throw it into the recording. So it's not going into our back pockets. Like.
right.
And as soon as we have enough where we can like, all right, we need to put €13. Like we record on Saturday. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, right, we're short something euro. It's €13 each. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
We have a
yeah.
little Revolut DPH kitty. I mean, it's deadly, man. It's like gig, record, gig. Like,
Yeah.
it's in that order. It's a never-ending cycle, and it's just fun. So no, to answer your question, sorry for the long answer.
No, not at all.
We like the first 3 we recorded in one day.
Yeah.
We stuck them out as soon as we could. Then we did like that bellyache eagle ripper stuff in the rehearsal studio, actually, where we rehearsed in Beard Fire in Harris Cross with the lads.
Oh yeah,
It's much
yeah,
more.
they're recording a lot. Like I know a lot of acts are doing stuff with Beardford. Apparently, they're really great. I don't have any firsthand.
They just did a Dead Human. Have you heard this band?
I haven't no.
They're young fellas. I've seen videos online. They look unreal, and they just did a few bits for them. Sorry, Dead Human. It's breaking here. But yeah, we go past them and we did that. They were much more stretched out psychedelic. That was more of the psychedelic stuff. And we wanted to give it a bash, And as those, and they were actually quite poppier. A lot of the vocal melodies were very poppy. So I was like, it sounded good for what that was, but Dara's style is just more aligned to that. Like it's just bash out a song in a day, in his garage, and we just get. So yeah, that's it. Did I answer it? I can't remember.
I think you did.
I'm riddled with ADHD, brother.
Nah, that's grand, man. Everyone is nowadays.
Okay, no bricks.
We all no. I think it's actually good for keeping people's attention. This would be darting through different.
Well, you have to transcribe this, don't you?
It's grand, man. No, I'll just I'm getting good at that. I've been doing this for couple of years now, and I'm good at kind of editing as I listen. So I kind of go, that's what you look at. So that's I've been getting really good at doing that because I have like I do this website pretty much on my own, and I have to do like I have like a bunch of deadlines people want me to hit and stuff like that. So I kind of have to go, okay. I need like no bullshit. I have to edit. I don't like again. It's actually it's funny because it's kind of good because like if I had all the time in the world, nothing would get done. So it
Yeah,
kind of it's good
exactly.
just to have that.
It comes back to that deadline thing. Like we work well under that. Like
Yeah.
you need something to light a fire under you.
Yeah. No, and absolutely. And then like but then like the problem is I don't know if you've ever missed deadlines. You just feel like shit. You're like, oh fuck.
See, again, I haven't missed a deadline now because I'm a postman. I've missed a letter going into a letterbox. That's
I guess the fun thing we'll just talk about is it's the new thing here I mentioned, Scrunched Up Fist. It's coming out Friday. Well, it'll be out by the time this is out. But yeah, I was listening to it, man. It's like from my understanding, like it was just kind of a jam that kind of just developed into a full song. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about it and that kind of how it
Sure.
sort of differs, I guess, from the other songs you put out because, like you were saying, like you can do the like 2 minute punk songs, you can do like the 10 minute expansive songs, and this is kind of more on the former.
Yeah, it's so basically we were in the middle of writing another song called "Glow on My Son," the big 10 minute longer,
Yeah,
and when I was saying we were trying to record it, we were just in the rehearsal room trying to record it on our phone, just so we remembered the structure of it. You know what I mean? So we
yeah,
were just and we kept fucking up, like and like when you have to restart a 10 minute
yes,
long
yes,
song,
yeah.
really fucking annoying.
It's
And I
annoying
just
if you do it on the 2 minute song.
mate, I swear to God, I can handle that.
Yeah.
But like I was just like snapping. And I think we were 8, 9 minutes in and we fucked up. And I was just like, fuck it, I'm going for a smoke. So I just went out like in a huff and I had a ciggy to calm
Yeah.
down. Just because we've been trying for ages. And when I walked back in, they were playing exactly what you hear in the song. Doom 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 doom. Just like kind of almost like it's like a techno kind of beat, kind of like this thing. And the odd time, like I'm not really a great writer, but like sometimes something like will just come a little bit, and I'll write stuff down the phone.
Hmm.
And I had like one verse and another verse, and I just knew I was singing it in my head as I was writing it, and
Yeah.
as soon as they played, I was like, that goes with that, and I said, just keep going, and took the lyrics out and just started almost fucking rapping, isn't it? Like, it's, well, Beastie Boys are a massive influence on
Yeah,
me as
yeah,
well, like,
yeah,
massive influence, especially all that punk stuff, Aglio e
yeah.
Olio and all some of bullshit.
BAC, I remember that. That shit always gets stuck in my head.
Have you heard the Aglio e Olio stuff? This the EP from the 90s, mate.
And
Aglio e Olio. Listen to it. It's a
okay.
5-track EP. It's not or 6-track. It's 9 minutes long. They released it just before Hello Nasty. It's the best punk
Right.
shit you'll ever hear. Anyway, so basically, it worked. Me and the lads, the lyrics, and then I added a little bit of guitar, like just fuck all guitar. It's 2.5 chords,
Right.
and we knew straight away like that's it, done. And it comes like that, And it's funny that it like came like that when we were trying to just remember how to play a big long 10 minute thing. It was
Yeah.
kind of like it was like Didi Ramone saying, "Stop playing that shit, man." Yeah. But it was just like it was the simplicity of that song that kind of made us feel good about
Yeah.
going forward for stuff. I don't know. It's just fun to play live, man.
I'd ask you actually, just kind of based on something you were saying there, do you like the later Ramones stuff? Because I think they start to stretch out and get a
All right,
bit
here we go.
complex. When people talk about like Ramones just sounding the same, I think they're talking about the first four albums. So like basically the stuff they put out between, I guess,
Up to
76.
Rocket to Russia, isn't it? Or up to what else
What's
is
the
there?
album? I can't think of
Ramones,
it.
Leave Home,
Yeah,
Rocket to Russia,
what's the one after the red one? I can't think of the name of it.
End of Century.
End of the Century. I think those four albums. But I think everything after that they
But
started experimenting.
end of the century is Phil Spector though. I'm
Yeah.
a massive Ramones fan. There you go. Remember that.
So I need to
But
know what you think of the later day stuff because there's a song on their last album, Adios Amigos. So I think it's fucking great. I listen to it a lot. It's what's it called? It's Not For Me to Know. I love that song. It's really good.
do you know what? We actually how I got into the Ramones was I was given the best of the Chrysalis years. So it
I
wasn't
had that too. I had that as well.
it's not the triple CD one. It was just the
Oh,
best
that's what I
of.
had.
Oh no, my dad just got me this because I was listening to like Sum 41 and stuff, and I
Yeah.
asked for a Sum 41 album at Christmas. He's like, yeah, but here's also the Ramones, and he got me Nevermind the Bollocks as well.
Yeah.
It's not word of a lie now. And then I just got fascinated with that, and then got the triple CD thing.
Yeah.
That's how I got into the Ramones was the 80s stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like, I Believe in Miracles, da-na-na, da-na-na. And that song Anxiety was massive.
Yeah.
I used to love that. Bonzo Goes to Bitburg as well. Was
I
off
love
all
that one.
those
Yeah,
all
Bonzo goes to
first
Pittsburgh.
made famous in the fucking Skid Rock movie and stuff. But like, but it was like
I love this. I
they were
love the
right.
story behind that song too, because it was what was it?
You know, Reagan.
Reagan was in Bitburg in Germany, and he went to there was like a what do you call it, like a ceremony that was happening for German soldiers who died in World War II.
Yeah. It's and it goes out for a cup of tea. Like it was really
Yeah.
clever, and
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure who wrote that, Dee Dee or Joey. It sounds more like a Joey because it's a bit more intricate. Well, like they had great songs. I mean, even the CJ came in. He had some pretty good, funny songs, like like
Yeah.
about wrestling and stuff. And
Yeah.
that is how I got into their mouths. Like it's all that stuff. And then you go back, and actually, it was the third CD on that album on that Christmas years. It was the live album.
Yeah.
That's what really does it. And that's where you hear the older stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You hear California Sun, you hear Cabana Not Blue, and that's when we went back. Or I did them anyway. And that's when you actually go, oh, okay, what the fuck is this? This is amazing. But yeah, no. Here, mate, can I just go to the bathroom back in 2 seconds?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
It'll literally be 30
Pause
seconds.
recording.
From the area that
I just realized I wasn't recording, sorry.
the whole time I was recording?
No, just there when you went to the toilet.
Oh, right.
We're just talking about Joey Ramone's accent for context. Go on.
Well, like, yeah, in Queens, and like I went to visit my mate who was living over there at the time.
Yeah.
It's not multicultural, but every now and again you hear it. Fuck, I kind of can't do it. But like, like, Joey.
Joey.
I remember I used to buy all the DVDs. They used to have the live European, no, it wasn't even European, it was like a South American tour DVD.
Yes. This is the last one they did. Last tour.
And it was just like, they were getting mobbed. They were like the Beatles down in South America. It was insanity.
They're playing like Coliseums and shit. The one they did in Argentina in '96 is insane.
They're old as well.
Yes,
and
yeah.
And
That would
Joey
have been like '96, wouldn't it? That was like the last tour.
It was. I think it was exactly that. And Joey was crippled with his knees, not changing his fucking jocks for fucking weeks and socks, and everyone had to touch every light fucking switch and everything,
Yeah.
God bless him, even back then they didn't really know. They just thought he was a freak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like a guy needed help years ago.
Yeah. No, it's really sad. I remember watching I think it's the last show they did at the Palace in Los Angeles, and they brought out Tim from Rancid. Who else did they bring out? There was a few acts. It was, I think,
Eddie Vedder.
Yeah, I'm trying to think there. And was Lemmy there, or they just played?
Lemmy played RAMONES, and then they got and then they got Dee Dee out as well, right?
Yes,
and they played Love Kills.
Yeah, I know. I thought 53rd and 3rd or something.
Oh, the fuck would they play like Annie? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
and there's a good 80s, early 80s Dee Dee song, Endless Vacation. That's fucking hardcore punk. Yeah. Like, you definitely that must be out. That must be around the time of the likes of Baffin, After Beat, and the Cramps, because they were all supporting at that stage. Yeah. And Dee Dee's obviously listening to whoever, Black Flag, probably.
There's that famous photo, and it was on the cover of Roland's Getting Van book of all these LAPD, like a swarm of LAPD going into the Hollywood Palladium show, and it's a Ramones and Black Flag show at the Palladium in, I guess, 82, something like that.
It's the same. Mate, if you look at some of those, like, it's sometimes when we're trying to this links in. Sometimes when we're trying to think about poster ideas, we have a really nice lad who does some great posters sometimes for us. I'll look at I'll just Google Black Flag 80s poster or Ramones.
Raymond Pettibone, yeah.
Oh, Raymond Pettibone, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Another great documentary you can watch on YouTube. Amazing stuff. Like that's they got now a logo, that peace sign. Yeah, that's written, drawn freehand by our mate. I'm really ping ponging, haven't I? But it's drawn freehand by our mate Gary, who gets the ex-bass player.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you even realised it, but you just had to draw 80s.
Yeah.
But a DC pink logo,
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was just the 4 bars. There was no Black Flag. It was just a Misfits face.
Yeah.
I just, oh,
Or the Crossbuster, the Bad Religion one.
yeah,
I love
Bad
that one.
Religion one, yeah.
That's a
And
great logo, but get you
well,
a bit in trouble.
I had a T-shirt back in the day. Didn't understand it all. You
Yeah.
know. You better ask us a couple more questions about the band because the boys will give you a fucking
All right. Yeah.
clock.
No, we're talking about. No, that's it. See you later. No, I'm joking. Well, I guess one fun thing I'll ask about the band, and I'll sort of let you go. Yeah, it's a bit about the formation. So, like, as you mentioned, like everyone in this band has been playing for a while. Yeah, how did this band kind of come about then? Like, how long has it been kind of going for? I mean, obviously, you've been releasing music for about a year, but like in terms of actually forming and
Well, like as I said, the about a year and a half, I'd say, we're up to now. About a year and a half since the formation of the band.
does it feel quick to you? Because like it's looking at like how long, like looking at how much stuff you have out in such a short amount of time, it feels
Well,
like
it does.
you guys are constantly going.
Well, I suppose that's honestly, I was only chatting to Matthew, our drummer. Me and Matt, so basically, like me and Dara, who's again a
Yeah.
former bass player, good
Right.
pal, and Matthew used to be in a band, another band previously to this that we started just before lockdown with another lad. He was the main guy. The other lad was the main guy. We were happy. Always that was the first proper band was back into, and we got Dara to play bass. He'd never played bass. He bought a bass, and we found Matthew, who was a mate of mine, his younger brother, and we played in that band for about 2.5 years. Played a few gigs, and then Dara left. Then I left. Matthew stayed on for donkeys actually.
What was it called? Sorry,
Melter.
Melter. Okay.
Yeah, and then like me and Dara just playing like acoustic guitars together, and like we were mad into like Toy Seagull, like love like that kind of garage rock stuff, and we just started trying to write stuff. And I bumped into Matthew in town and said that we're gonna have a jam. Do you know any drummers? He's like, oh, just like, I'll fucking drum for you. I'll fucking drum. So like Matthew's playing in two bands now, we're like, fuck it. And it just in the first jam, just I had one song from the previous band that we never got to do that we did, and then we just wrote two, I think, in the first jam. And then since then, Dara left. We got James, literally off boards.ie. That's still a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I know. That's actually where I used to when I was getting into punk. It was that and Tumped. I used to use kind of.
Were you ever on Punk for it?
No, what's that?
It was a forum,
Yeah.
It was a catty forum.
But what I used to love, man, was like, because like boards that you've been around, like I think since like the late '90s, right? It's been around forever. And when I was kind of like getting into punk after the fact, I was like looking back at old things. It was just interesting reading back to like because like when Dead Kennedys first came in 2002 to Ireland, it was their first show, and you can like read people saying, "Oh yeah, this show's coming on. Anyone going to it?" And people are like, "Ah, no, I don't want it." Or like Holidays in the Sun when that came to Dublin, like that
Yeah.
was before Rebellion Festival. It was called Holidays in the Sun. They used to do every
Oh,
now and then
okay.
Irish offshoot, and they did one in 2002 at Vicar Street. I think Little Fingers played there. A couple of like Irish bands and a couple of actually. Do you remember like they used to every now and again they do the Rebellion over here. I think Cock Sparrow played at the Voodoo Lounge and stuff like that.
If I'm being honest, I remember all those Voodoo Lounge gigs, and I remember like Marky Ramone playing things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know a lot of these. But, like remember we were saying earlier about the kind of Irish punk
Right.
scene.
Yeah,
There seems to be a lot. They seem to be a lot aligned more. Like a lot of them are into to all the English punk bands.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
honestly, I have no knowledge of any of those
yeah.
bands. I'm just not like I don't like not that I don't like them or I actually haven't heard one song. It just
Yeah,
never
yeah,
was never on my bag. I see a lot of the lads they were bringing over bands from the UK and stuff. I actually don't know anything about them, so I feel ignorant to all that stuff. Like last UK, I mean, I love the Damned and stuff. And I remember getting like
yeah.
buying one Exploited CD and stuff when I was a kid to get it in like fucking Tower. But it was more the Yankee stuff that I was big into,
Yeah.
man. Honestly,
No, I was the same. I prefer the American. I did like a lot of the British stuff too. Yeah, but I love the Damned. They were probably my favorite like British
yeah.
punk band.
We,
Yeah,
we used to cover New Rose quite a bit
I love that
in
song.
the hippies like.
And yeah, no, and like it's just like I don't know, man. Like I actually saw who did I see? Fucking Voodoo. Yeah, I don't think it's around anymore, is it? The Voodoo Lounge. They don't do stuff
You know,
anymore.
it is. It's called something else. But here's one for you. Do you remember Millions of Dead Cops? Did you hear that
Yeah,
band?
yeah, that's what I was about to say. I saw them with DRI there.
My old band supported them, Kids with Guns in Whelan's. about 16 years ago, and like we only had about 3 original songs. We just played a lot of punk covers, and it was fucking hilarious. It was, I think, the lead singer. God, I can't remember his name. You know, the
Dave,
lead.
I
You know,
can't
like
think. Yeah. I actually spoke to him at that show. Dave.
very eccentric character.
Yeah, he's a nice dude. He's a nice guy, but
Very nice guy.
he's
Very
fucking
nice
mad.
lad. He had those glass eyes, like he was insane. But he was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And I know I don't think we realized till like a year or two after, like, shit, that's MDC millions of
Yeah,
dead.
the significance of it, man.
I know we were
Actually,
morons.
that bass line on John Wayne was and Nazis fucking amazing.
Unreal
It's like
song.
one of my favorite bass lines.
I know, unreal. Well, oh yeah, how did we get together? Oh yeah, we've been playing. Oh yeah, we've been playing for a year and a half. I don't know. We just try and we jam once a week.
Yeah.
We try and play, I don't know, a gig a month, and we try and record every 3 months.
Well, it's funny, like you have that kind of like pretty casual approach because I know bands are like fucking like mad dedicated, like
They're
just like
overthinking it, man.
yeah, but they don't have the kind of they don't have the release pattern. You guys have the kind of consistent release pattern. They release maybe one song a year or something.
Listen, each their own. But
No,
honestly, if we could sum up the band, honestly, like we're doing it for the crack. This is we're me and Matthew have been mates for quite a long time now. Jimmy's been in the band a year and a half, and we've been very lucky that we've become very close friends and really quickly. He was like, he was the second lad that we tried out, and he's honestly, it's a dream, and like we've all got our own things going on. Jimmy's got a wife and a kid, a big job somewhere. Matthew's a Sparks. I'm a postman. Like we've all, he's got rent to pay. I live at home with my folks and pretty fucking quiet. Another victim of the housing crisis, but like us all. But like so this is all I have really. So we stick to it. I think we've missed, I don't know, in the past year and a half we missed like 3 rehearsals. You know what I mean? So we try and write as much as we can. And we try and write as varied stuff as we can. At the moment we're working on a cover of The Horizon and the Moon by fucking the Dubliners. So like it's and then we're mad into like Fail Cutie, Fail Cutie, all that
Yeah,
jazz. So we're trying to work in. Oh yeah, we'll be a jazz band too. But like just vibey stuff, and we just honestly sometimes we just see when answer the 3. It's like, okay, let's book in with them in 2 months, and we'll probably have a song by then.
Yeah.
But like it seems quick. I feel like because, but I mean maybe in the last 2 months because we had Do It Almighty, and then we had the remix album. That took 7 months to do, and
Yeah.
to get all those producers aligned. And then we actually recorded Do It Almighty and Scrunched Up Fist, and more or less really close together. So we've been holding on to Scrunched Up Fist for about 2 months. So yeah, I don't know, man. We just fucking love it. Stick. Like we've been in bands when people take things very seriously, and it just sucks the life out of it. Honestly, we're doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for anyone else.
Well, no, that's the thing. Like, it's nice to have a kind of a consistent pattern where everyone is committed, but not so. I don't know, not so rigorous. I guess where it's like it's like being in the military or something.
I think it helps being a 3-piece though, man.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think like the more members you add, but is there limitations to being in a 3-piece for what you're trying to do sonically, or as a good manager?
No, there's definitely limitations, but we luckily, Jimmy, the bass player, has more pedals than I do. Because he's a guitarist, like he's a guitarist, so he's like he has a load of these fucking mad pedals. And he's always changing the pedal board, whereas I have the same thing. It's all it is a wah, it's a delay, and it fuzz distortion. That's it. And that's all I'm comfortable with.
Would you do digital so far? Is it all just like pedals?
What do you mean?
So you can do plug your guitar in, do it through the computer. Would you ever do that, or use the effects through?
I haven't got a computer.
Yeah.
You're on my phone in the book. I'm shy at all that stuff. I like my simple things that I can control. James is really like him and Matthew are much more musically versed. I don't really understand a lot of it, but it's great to have the two of them there. Or when I can like say it's there, it's on the 3rd fret or whatever.
Yeah.
But like the goal is we have a synth at home there, but no one to play it. We bought a synth, so. But yeah,
If
I
any
don't know.
synth players are listening, give them a shout.
Please, Lord, yeah. But and then another guitarist as well, like
Yeah,
But,
we don't miss.
but I feel probably if that does happen, you'll probably see us releasing less.
Yeah,
Because
that's probably the issue. But it's like you need these extra sounds. But
let's be honest. If just say if we got the synth player and the guitarist next week,
Yeah.
it'd be probably 8 months, but like before we were up to snuff.
And
Probably.
even then, it'd be kind of like trying to figure out how committed they are to the project and all that. Because like that's the other thing. It's like I've done practices with people when they used to play in bands and like it would go well, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm not like really free. I'm in college or I have this going on or whatever." It's like
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. But it's like,
well, do you know what? Maybe it's because we all work. We're all Matthew is the youngest. I think he's 27 this month or next month.
right.
And then Jimmy is 2. He's 30. He's 37. 34. So the fact that we're old, maybe it's just that there's a bit more structure there. We rehearse once a week and we record every 2 months. And don't be late.
Fair enough. Cheers, man. I won't take up any more of your time. Just final thing
Thanks
to say
so
is,
much, man. And genuinely, thank you for taking an interest. Really means a lot. Genuinely.
oh no, absolutely. Just one last thing I just want to ask. Is there anything you want to
Go for it.
plug? Obviously you have the single coming out Friday, by the time this is out, of course. Beyond the single, and you want to plug for the rest of the year into next year, or anything like that?
Just November. It will be out. This will be out for November 10th.
I'm trying to get it out for Friday.
Oh, really? You lunatic.
I'll try to get it out to coincide with the single.
You're a madman. You're gonna have a nightmare trying to translate.
No. I actually, as we're talking, I'm thinking like, all right, this is the point I'm gonna get there. Trust me, when it comes out Friday, read the article. It'll be succinct. I'll take out all the faff and just have like the points.
Leave some of the faff. That was good faff. But
no. What I do, this is what I do. I use the articles for just the informative pieces, and then I use the podcast for the people who want to hear all the shit.
Okay, well, it's okay. So the only really thing we have coming up is we have for the rest of the year is November with Full Points, 50-foot one, 10th of November in the Grand South.
Perfect.
I'll tell you what, before you go, right, and you said faff, right? I'm gonna have a little thing with. I'm gonna just quick. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you can hear you fine.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do this for the crack. So sometimes I like to write song names ideas down. I have 66 written down on my phone. I won't write them all.
I can't see them though. The camera's stopped.
Oh no, I'm gonna read them out. Is that okay?
All right, grand, yeah.
Here's one today because you said faff. I have one here called minimum faff.
Okay.
And there's one called Dog Tricks Man, which I don't remember writing down. I think I was drunk doing that. Here's one called Sundown. Yeah, I don't know what that means. 11 Bar Blues. That's pretty funny. And then, Derry Berry Pizza and Diabolical Shopper. Anyway, there you go, what?
So we got a sneak preview of what's to come.
They're just there. Only one of them is half written.
Do you actually? I'm guilty of like taking notes of shit and then like losing notes or forgetting them and then just end up doing things anyway. Are you like that? Or do you once you write a note you kind of commit to the note?
No, I have about 20 half-written songs in the book.
I love that. It gives you the illusion of being organized, but you're not really.
Oh no, they're not organized. And you know what's worse than the notes? The voice notes.
Yeah, I never listened to them.
Well, I know that there's about 5 or 6 actual tunes in there, but they'll probably never get made.
Dude, I think I'm a bit of a digital hoarder where I'll like make all these notes and like, yes, I have them, I can get around to them, and then I never do, and then I just end up doing whatever.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's because it's all too easy, and then it's just like you come on.
Yeah.
Anyway,
anyway, cheers, man. It's nice talking with you, and I'll.
Damn fucking pleasure, man. Where are you from, anyway, yourself?
Tala.
You're from Tala, only down there, not too far.
Oh, really? Yeah, you're nearby.
I'm in Crumlin, not too far.
Yeah,
not too far.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go, man. It's a real pleasure. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Do you need anything else for me? Thank you so much.
I think I have everything I need. Just look out Friday.
Yeah, fucking get the text. You have my number. Let us know.
Yeah, perfect.
All the best, dude. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you liked it, please subscribe and stick around because we have plenty more like this coming soon.